Chapter 12-15. Start a new era and leave a mark in history. At this moment, Li Ke finally realized that Li Zixuan was not bragging when he said those words. It was something that could really happen. But could he really make all the people in Tang Dynasty use the transaction token he created? Li Ke couldn't help but doubt it. Seeing the doubt on Li Ke's face, Li Zixuan patted him on the shoulder and said, "Little Ke, don't think too much about it. Right now, your priority is to make everyone in the academy believe in your transaction token and make sure that it won't be copied by others. As for making everyone in Tang Dynasty use our transaction token, it's still too early to do so. There's still a long way to go." Then, Yamacho, what should I do to make sure that the transaction token won't be copied? Li Ke's eyes lit up as he asked. Li Zixuan smiled mysteriously and said, 3 days later, go down the mountain and visit the workshop. Faubert will give you a transaction token printed by the workshop. At that time, you will know that there are some things in this world that are difficult to copy. Li Ke was pleasantly surprised. Yamacho, you already have a plan? Haha. You can say that. 3 days later, you will know. Li Ke saw that Li Zixuan didn't want to elaborate, so he didn't ask any further. At this moment, he felt that something was missing. After thinking for a while, he said, Yamacho, I think that we should give the transaction token a name and design different denominations to make it easier to use in the future. Li Zixuan nodded. Even if Li Ke didn't say anything, he would name the currency. But what should he name it? Renminbi or banknotes? Forget it, it doesn't match the Tang Dynasty. After thinking for a long time, Li Zixuan finally said, let's call it Tang Yuan. A Tang Yuan is equivalent to a coin. Below the Tang Yuan is a Tang Jiao. A Tang Jiao is equivalent to a copper coin. As for the denomination of the transaction token, it can be 1 Tang Jiao, 5 Tang Jiao, 10 Tang Jiao, 50 Tang Jiao, 100 Tang Jiao, and 1 Tang Yuan, 5 Tang Yuan, 10 Tang Yuan, 50 Tang Yuan, and 100 Tang Yuan. When you trade, no matter how much the item is worth, you can use glutinous rice balls of different denominations to form the corresponding amount of money. It's convenient and time-saving. Tang Yuan? What a nice name! Li Ke's eyes lit up and he praised. Yamacho, what should the department in the academy that is in charge of depositing and exchanging Tang Yuan be called? He had to admit that this child was quite thoughtful. Let's call it Yen Huang Bank. It's a village that specializes in managing Yen Huang College's copper coins. Things like banks were too far away from this era. If he rashly brought it up, it would probably be hard for people to accept it. After thinking about it, only the term bank would be easier for people to understand. Bank. Good. Then Ke will go and prepare the matters of the bank. Li Ke excitedly got up and said goodbye. I didn't wait in vain. The era of paper money is finally coming. After Li Zixuan left, the corners of Li Zixuan's mouth curled into a smile as he muttered to himself. No. Why do I feel like Yamacho has already thought of this method for a long time? On the way back to the classroom, Li Ke suddenly stopped in his tracks and hit his head in annoyance as he muttered softly. His suspicions were not without reason. When Li Zixuan heard about the method of the transaction certificate, it seemed like he already had a perfect anti-counterfeiting method in his mind. The reason why he said so much was likely to be to test him. But if Li Zixuan had already thought of this method, why didn't he act on it? Why did he wait until Li Ke suggested it? Forget it. Who cares? Yamacho must have his reasons. After thinking for a long time, Li Ke still could not figure out the deeper meaning behind Li Zixuan's actions. He shook his head and decided not to think about it anymore. He still had a lot of things to do now. Master Lu, take a look at this seal. Can you engrave it? In the afternoon, Li Zixuan came to the workshop with a drawing in his hand. He looked for Skyblade, Lu Dingyi, the original master of Strange Pavilion, Heavenly Craft Pavilion, Luidao. Lu Yidao's carving skills were the best in Chang'an. After Li Zixuan bought Heavenly Craft Pavilion and established Strange Pavilion, he hired Lu Yidao to the workshop and gave him preferential treatment. When the workshop first introduced movable type printing, most of the words were engraved by Lu Yidao. "Yo, Marquis, let this old man take a look." Lu Yidao did not dare to be negligent. He quickly took the drawing from Li Zixuan with both hands and began to look at it carefully. After a while, he raised his head and asked, "Marquis wants to engrave all these words on the seal?" "Yes." "Is there any problem?" Li Zixuan nodded in response. Miniature carving was a craft that had a long history. Many skilled craftsmen during the spring and autumn period could do it. Li Zixuan asked Lu Yidao to make this seal mainly for the purpose of making banknotes anti-counterfeit. In the Song Dynasty, banknotes appeared in China. Not only were there banknotes, there were also many anti-counterfeit technologies. After all, in ancient times, there were no banknote detectors, QR code scanning, and other advanced technologies. However, the ancient people used some excellent anti-counterfeit technologies on banknote. Li Zixuan planned to use one of them, the anti-counterfeit seal. Earlier, Li Zixuan said that he wanted to stamp his personal seal on the banknotes as an anti-counterfeit. However, Li Zixuan felt that it was not reliable because it was too easy to fake a personal seal. If he really wanted to use a seal as an anti-counterfeit, he would make an anti-counterfeit seal. This was a method of anti-counterfeit banknotes that the Jin merchants came up with during the Ming and Qing dynasties. They specially designed miniature carvings. The contents of the miniature carvings were hundreds of words of poetry. The miniature carvings were very delicate and could not be carved by ordinary technique. Even if it could be made, it would take a lot of material resources and require a very high level of carving skills. Moreover, in the process of carving, a few words would be deliberately engraved. Even the original carver would not be able to carve the same miniature carvings as before. Therefore, the counterfeiters simply gave up on making fake banknote. Marquis. If it was a few years ago, old Lu, would have been able to do this kind of exquisite work. But now old Lu, can't even see small things clearly with my eyes. I'm afraid I can't carve this seal of yours. Old Lu frowned and looked troubled. When Li Zixuan heard this, he thought to himself, "Isn't this presbyopia? That's easy. Ha. Master Lu, don't be in a hurry to refuse. I have a way to let you see very small things clearly. Please wait for half a day. I'll have someone send you something tomorrow. Wear it and you'll be able to see everything clearly." Li Zixuan said with a smile. What a joke. He had already made an astronomical telescope. How could he not make a pair of reading glasses? Even if he couldn't make reading glasses in a short time, he could at least make a magnifying glass first, right? Chapter 12:16. After giving Lu Yidao the blueprint of the anti-counterfeit seal and the pattern of Tang Yuan's motherboard, Li Zixuan went to find Uncle Fu and assigned him another task. "Young master, is there really such a magical paper in this world?" Faubert was surprised when he heard Li Zixuan's intention. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Of course there is. It's just that the production method is more troublesome. When it's done, Faubert, you'll understand that what I said today is true." That's right. He wanted the workshop to produce a batch of special paper for the production of banknotes. After all, if he wanted to prevent the banknotes from being copied in the future, just relying on the anti-counterfeit seal was not enough. With another anti-counterfeit method, it would be an extra layer of insurance in the future. Good. Since young master is so confident, I'll give it a try. Faubert nodded and took a pen and paper from the side. He sighed and said, Hee. Young master, please don't blame me. I'm old, and my memory is not as good as before. Young master, please tell me in detail how to make this water pattern paper. I'll write it down and try it out in 2 days. Li Zixuan looked at Faubert's wrinkled but kind face. He smiled gently and said, What's there to be surprised about? After all, a good memory is not as good as a bad pen. Faubert, you can leave the workshop's affairs to your subordinate. Don't tire yourself out. Faubert smiled and said, Hee. Thank you for your concern, young master. I understand. Now in the workshop, I'm just talking. It's not tiring at all. Dr. Sun even praised me for my strong body before the new year. That's good. Li Zishuan gave a heartfelt smile of relief and then got down to business. Uncle Fu, this kind of paper is actually not that complicated to make. First, let the steel factory forge a batch of water pattern rollers with protruding patterns. Then, install the water pattern rollers on the rollers of our paper machine and use them to imprint the paper. During the paper-making process, the water pattern roller would come into contact with the front of the paper, and the front of the paper would be imprinted with water patterns. The vertical and horizontal water patterns on the wet paper could be seen under the light. They were evenly and neatly arranged patterns with different transparency. Oh, that's right, the material for the production of water pattern paper must be the bark of the chew tree. Other materials cannot be used. Faubert, you can arrange for people to buy a batch of chew tree bark for the workshop. First, buy it near Chang'an. Later, go to Sichuan to buy it because there should be a lot of chew tree in Sichuan. Watermarked paper was the kind of paper that would show bright lines or patterns other than the curtains when it was exposed to light. It was the same principle as how modern RMB could show the portrait of a great person when it was exposed to light. This kind of watermarked paper could increase the potential beauty of the paper, and could also be used to prevent counterfeiting. In fact, water-patterned paper had existed since ancient times. It was not a patent of modern people. According to the original history, in the middle of the Tang Dynasty, the people of Chengdu invented water-patterned paper. It had two types of printing, clear and dark. Other regions could not produce it at all, so it was called Sichuan paper. Thanks to this, the earliest paper currency in China's history, jiaozi, first appeared in the Sichuan region. It was only later that it slowly spread out. In the beginning, people did not care about paper money at all. They only used it as stubs and felt that it was very easy to carry around. Later, they found that it was very useful and began to use it for transactions. Jiaozi was gradually popularized just like that. When it came to the southern Song dynasty, because there was no supply of Sichuan's water-patterned paper, they switched to printing paper from the Jianghuai region. However, Jiangnan paper did not have the special anti-counterfeiting ability of Sichuan paper, so there was a large amount of fake money in the market. At that time, there were more fake jiaozi, guaozi, and jiaozi than real money. Strict laws could not stop the counterfeiting of paper money. This directly caused the southern Song dynasty's economy to sink into a quagmire. Therefore, the water-patterned paper used to produce banknotes was a very important anti-counterfeiting method. Chew tree bark? Young master, why must we use chew tree bark to make paper? Faubert listened and nodded his head. In the end, he could not help but ask. Li Zishuan replied, Faubert, paper made from chew tree bark not only has better toughness than normal paper, but it also has better texture. Faubert nodded his head skeptically. Then, he felt that it was a little strange. Young master, why did you go through so much trouble to make water-patterned paper? It was all his fault for only caring about the technical aspects and ignoring Li Zishuan's purpose. Li Zishuan smiled mysteriously and said, Faubert, you will understand later. Other than the water-patterned paper, there is one more thing that I need to trouble Faubert to arrange for people to do as soon as possible. Young master, please speak. Faubert had long been immune to Li Zishuan's creative ability, so he did not make a fuss about it at the moment. Li Zishuan paused and said, Faubert, recently you have been thinking of ways to control the carbon content in the steel to refine a slightly softer steel. I plan to use this steel to make an engraving board, an intaglio engraving board. After this steel is refined, let Master Lu draw the engraving pattern I gave him on the steel plate, and I will engrave it myself later. Intaglio printing, or intaglio printing, was the traditional method of modern banknotes production. In the 21st century, all the countries in the world were still using intaglio printing to produce banknote. The inked part of the printing plate was concave. During printing, the printing plate was directly in contact with the paper. Under the strong pressure, the ink in the concave pattern was directly transferred to the paper. The ink on the paper was three-dimensional, and if you touched it carefully with your hand, you would feel that it was uneven. On modern banknotes, it was easy to find two characteristics of intaglio printing. One was that the ink layer was thick, and the second was that it had a strong three-dimensional effect. Intaglio printing was the ultimate anti-counterfeiting method that Li Zixuan had designed for Tang Yuan. He did not believe that there would be a place in the world with such advanced printing technology as Qi Chu Ji's workshop. More importantly, the master plate used for intaglio printing was hand engraved. Hand engraving had a unique anti-counterfeiting property, because every engraver's work had its own personal style and characteristics, and also had a certain degree of chance. This was something that could not be imitated by others, including the engraver himself, who could not carve an identical engraving plate. Although there were many advanced copying techniques and counterfeiting methods in the 21st century, it was impossible to copy a banknote that was exactly the same as a hand-engraved banknote. With this three-pronged approach, Li Zixuan could be said to have blocked all avenues for those who wanted to copy banknotes. Although Faubert had never seen intaglio engraving and intaglio printing, he could roughly guess what Li Zixuan wanted to do from the word. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "Good. Currently, the workshop can already produce steel. The soft steel that young master mentioned should also be no problem." Li Zixuan replied with a then got up and left. Chapter 12:17. Ink Girl, are you there? After returning to Yunshan, Li Zixuan went to Emo Lingwei's courtyard and shouted from outside. He had just gone to the academy to look for Emo Lingwei, but he couldn't find her, so he could only come to the courtyard. Although it was broad daylight, he had to avoid suspicion when looking for a girl. After all, Emo Lingwei could very well be his friend's wife in the future. So he just stood outside the courtyard and shouted for Emo Lingwei from afar. Thump, thump, thump. After a while, a series of footsteps could be heard from the house in the courtyard. Then, Emo Lingwei, who was wrapped in a mink coat, ran out in a hurry. "Ah, Yamacho, you're finally here. Come in quickly. Come in quickly." Before Li Zixuan could say anything, Emo Lingwei said excitedly. Fortunately, she was holding a book in her hand, otherwise she would have touched Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan was sweating profusely. He thought to himself, what medicine did this girl take today? He hurriedly took 2 steps back and said warily, "Ink Girl, what's wrong? Are you also looking for me?" "Yes." Emo Lingwei responded subconsciously, but then she felt something was wrong and said, "That's not right." "What do you mean by also? Yamacho, are you also looking for me?" Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and complained in his heart, "Sister, if I don't have anything, why would I come here? To chat with you? If that's the case, won't your little Ning fight with me?" After a while, he nodded helplessly and said, "There are some things that I want you to help me with." Before Li Zixuan could finish, Emo Lingwei interrupted, "Hey! Yamacho, don't say anything. Answer me a few questions." Then, without waiting for Li Zixuan's answer, she quickly flipped the book to a certain page and asked, "Yamacho, this book says that when a part of the conductors in a closed circuit cut the magnetic induction line, there will be an electric current in the conductors. But why can't we see the so-called magnetic induction line with our naked eyes?" Li Zixuan was stunned. He finally understood why Emo Lingwei was in such a hurry today. It turned out that she had fallen into the trap of electricity. Haha, this was also what he had expected. Ink Girl, let's put this question aside for now. I have something more important to talk to you about." Although he understood Mo Lingwei's difficulties, Li Zixuan still said so. Compared with making reading glasses for Louis Dao, it was undoubtedly more important and urgent. Mo Lingwei quickly retorted, "No way. No way. What could be more important than this? If I can't figure it out, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep tonight. Yamacho, I haven't slept well for 2 consecutive nights." Only then did Li Zixuan notice her 2 panda eyes. He couldn't help but smile and sigh in his heart. This girl is really a science fanatic. Okay. Let's solve your problem first. Unable to persuade this stubborn girl, Li Zixuan took the book from Mo Lingwei's hand and began to explain. Ink girl, first of all, you have to understand that the magnetic induction line is just an idealized physical model. It is a curve that describes the distribution of magnetic fields for the convenience of magnetic research. In addition, electric fields and magnetic fields are both substances, but they are different from ordinary substances. They have no physical form. They exist, but they can't be seen or touched. Ink girl, do you understand? After digesting it for a while, Mo Lingwei nodded and said, "Well, I think I understand. Yamacho, you are really a genius. You can actually come up with the method of magnetic field lines. Oh, by the way, Yamacho, I have another question." "Why do you have another one?" Li Zixuan stared at her speechlessly. He had just heard Mo Lingwei say that she understood and was ready to breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't expect that Mo Lingwei wouldn't give him a chance to breathe at all. "Yes. There must be more than one question, Yamacho." Mo Lingwei looked at Li Zixuan strangely. Her eyes seemed to say, "You didn't think that there was only one question at the beginning, did you? Yamacho, I don't understand why the direction of the magnetic induction current is the right-hand spiral rule and not the left-hand spiral rule. Is there a deeper reason that you didn't write in the book?" Li Zixuan heard this and was speechless. He thought to himself, why does this girl have to question everything? She's almost asking 100,000 questions. However, in this world, people who liked to get to the bottom of things and challenge authority would only have 2 outcomes in the future. One was to become a loathsome idiot, and the other was to become a super big shot in the academic world. Those people who would honestly learn whatever was taught in the book without the slightest doubt would have limited achievements in the future. In comparison, Mo Lingwei's academic limits were much higher in the future. Ink girl, this is the conclusion from the experiment. If you don't believe me, you can, on the west side of Yunshan, in front of a courtyard, a man and a woman were standing in front of the courtyard. They weren't talking about love, nor were they in front of flowers under the moonlight. Instead, they were discussing academic problems. They were really the 2 weirdos of the Tang Dynasty. Li Zixuan's lips were almost dry from talking from 4:45 p.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Finally, he solved all of Mo Lingwei's problems. "Hey, Yamacho, you said you wanted to talk to me about something. Hurry up and say it." After Mo Lingwei's doubts were cleared, she finally thought of Li Zixuan's matter. She asked Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan didn't have the energy to complain about this girl's carelessness. He sighed softly and said, "I came here today to ask Ink Girl for a favor, but it's already late, so we can only wait until tomorrow." "Yamacho, tell me what it is first, so I can be mentally prepared." Mo Lingwei expressed that she was a little afraid of Li Zixuan's trap. A few days ago, Li Zixuan asked her to prepare for the construction of the generator. At that time, she didn't know how big the trap was, but after she jumped in, she realized that it wasn't a trap at all, but a bottomless abyss. Once she jumped in, she wouldn't be able to jump out even if she wanted to. Seeing Mo Lingwei's wary face, Li Zixuan was both angry and amused. He said, "It's not a big deal. I just want you to help me polish 2 glass lenses. You did a good job with the astronomical telescope. So this time, I want to ask Ink Girl to give Master Lu a pair of lenses so that he can see very small things through them." "Yamacho, are you talking about a magnifying glass? That's easy. But why do you need a magnifying glass for Master Lu? And what's the size of the magnifying glass? You have to tell me, Yamacho, right? Mo Lingwei was best at optics, especially after she learned the optics part of the first volume of physics. In the whole Tang Dynasty, only Li Zixuan could compare with her in this area. So, of course, she knew about the existence of a magnifying glass. Chapter 12:18. Master Lu is old. It's normal for him to not be able to see things clearly, isn't it? Forget it, Ink Girl, don't grind the lenses for now. Just make a magnifying glass for Master Lu. He's not in a hurry to use it. Li Zixuan didn't want to explain too much, so he just gave a vague explanation and wanted to slip away. But Mo Lingwei didn't want to let him have his way. Hey, Yamacho, why can't old people see things clearly, but with a magnifying glass they can see things clearly? What knowledge is there in this? What knowledge is there in this? What knowledge is there in this? It's just a matter of correcting the vision of hyperopia. But if he really wanted to explain it to Mo Lingwei, this girl would definitely ask what was hyperopia? Why did he need a magnifying glass to correct hyperopia? If he wanted to explain all these miscellaneous questions to Mo Lingwei, it would probably take him a long time to explain them to her. Li Zixuan didn't want to accompany this silly girl in the cold wind, no matter what, so he didn't dare to stop walking. He said as he slipped away, "We'll talk about this later. Ink Girl, remember to go to the workshop tomorrow and help me make the magnifying glass. If you feel that you can't do it alone, then you can ask Yan Xiaoning to help you." The next day, Li Zixuan went to the academy and discussed the dam construction plan with Mo Huai again. Mo Huai still felt that the plan wasn't perfect, so he requested to modify it again. On Li Zixuan's side, he had already started to send people to recruit workers. If he wanted to build a dam, he would need at least a few thousand people, and it would be best if they were good at swimming. Fortunately, the entire Lantian County had become Li Zixuan's fief, so it was much easier to recruit craftsmen. According to Wang Zhong, in just 2 days, there were more than 2,000 villagers who were good at swimming came to apply. It was estimated that in another week, all the craftsmen would be recruited. Coming out of the academy, Li Zixuan coincidentally met Mo Lingwei. After learning that this girl had made the magnifying glass for Lu Yidao in just one morning, he clapped his hands and laughed, praising Mo Lingwei greatly. Then, taking advantage of Mo Lingwei's joy, Li Zixuan immediately slipped away. He had to go home to eat, so he didn't want to be caught by Mo Lingwei again. "Wife, there's news from father-in-law. Do you want to hear it?" After returning home, Li Zixuan's to find Han Yushi. "Husband, my father's a letter?" Han Yushi stood up in surprise and asked Li Zixuan. "Yes. He just came this morning," Li Zixuan replied with a smile. Yifang County was not far from Chang'an City. It would only take a day to travel 800 miles. "Husband, tell me what's written in the letter?" Han Yushi quickly put down her work, came over, and asked anxiously. "Ha! Wife, take a guess. Who did father-in-law meet in Lan Province?" "You definitely won't be able to guess." Li Zixuan smiled and said mysteriously. Han Yushi rolled her eyes and said coquettishly, "Who else can he meet? My father doesn't know anyone there." "Husband, aren't you deliberately making things difficult for me by asking this question?" "Ha! Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Wife, father-in-law said in the letter that he met Lu Shiren and his son there." Li Zixuan took out a piece of paper full of writing from his sleeve, handed it to Han Yushi, and said with a smile, "It's quite a coincidence. Speaking of which, it's a coincidence. Father-in-law originally planned to buy the 3 farmsteads that he told me about before, but he didn't expect Lu Shiren to be living in one of them. Moreover, this fellow was chased out of Plum Village last year, but his evil intentions didn't change. After he went to Willow Village, he still bullied the people and kidnapped the women of the village. Now that he has been arrested by the county magistrate of Yifang County, he really deserves to be punished." Yes, yes. This father and son have finally received the punishment they deserve, Han Yushi said with a gratified smile. After lunch, Li Zixuan went to take a nap. Spring was sleepy, autumn was tired, and hibernated. Especially during the transition between winter and spring, if he didn't take a nap at noon, he would feel uncomfortable in the afternoon. When he woke up, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Han Yushi came over to tell him a piece of news. Husband, Faubert sent someone to tell me that the steel you want has been refined, and it has been handed over to Master Lu to draw patterns on it. Li Zixuan said in surprise, Oh? So fast? That's great. According to this progress, he should be able to receive the finished drawing of the banknote master tomorrow. In fact, the real progress was faster than he had expected. In the evening, when night was about to fall, Lu Yidao personally carried the mother plate of the banknotes he had drawn up to Yunshan and personally handed it to Li Zixuan. Young master, all the patterns on the mother plate have been drawn. Tomorrow, I will begin to carve the seal you asked me to do. So fast? Master Lu, you've worked hard. Li Zixuan took a small package from Lu Yidao and said in surprise. Lu Yidao stroked his beard and said with a smile, It's mainly because of the magnifying glass you asked Ink Girl to make, Marquis. It's really useful. With this thing, I can do twice the work with half the effort. Haha, I have to go back quickly. Otherwise, it will be completely dark in a while. Li Zixuan said with a smile, Take care, Master Lu. The night in Yunshan was quiet. It was past midnight, but there was still a room in the number 1 courtyard that was still lit. It was the study room. Li Zixuan was carving in the study room at the moment. In the evening, Lu Yidao sent the soft steel master with the finished Tang Yuan pattern. The rest was to carve grooves according to the lines drawn on the steel plate. This was a delicate work. When the modern manual carvers were carving, they had to hold a magnifying glass in their left hand and a knife in their right hand. They had to concentrate on carving lines on the steel plate. If there was a mistake, all the work would be wasted. Someone had once calculated the points and lines on banknote. A point needed to be carefully carved a few times, and a banknote meant that it needed to be carved 1,000,000 times. If one didn't have the endurance and strong basic skills of 10 years of practice, ordinary people would never be able to do this. The reason why Li Zixuan wanted to carve by himself was mainly because this time he was carving on a steel plate. Although the steel plate was soft steel, it was still very hard. Lu Yidao definitely couldn't do it, so he had to do it himself. At this moment, he was holding the tip of the wind-chasing sword 3 inches above it, and using the sword as a pen, he was concentrating on painting on the plate. The wind-chasing sword could cut iron like mud. Facing soft steel, it was almost like cutting tofu. At this time, the master plate with fine lines in Li Zixuan's hand had been carved with many grooves, but it was still far from being completely carved. Because the patterns on it were too complicated, even with Li Zixuan's abnormal speed, it would take him a whole night to carve it. Chapter 12:19. Li Zixuan spent an entire night carving the mother version of the banknote from nightfall to sunrise the next day. If it weren't for his strong inner strength, he wouldn't have been able to hold on for such a long time. Moreover, it would have been impossible for him to finish carving the mother version of the banknote in just one night. Even so, when he finished carving the last stroke, he couldn't help but feel dizzy and exhausted. Li Zixuan called Pang Feiji over and asked him to deliver the mother version of the banknote to the workshop personally. After that, he quickly went to bed. He really couldn't take it anymore. Logically speaking, this was his first time carving the mother version of a banknote. In his previous life, he didn't have the opportunity, the conditions, the ability, and even the courage. In this life, he was going to personally design the first banknote for Tang Dynasty. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't excited. It was because of this excitement that he worked overtime last night to carve the mother version of the banknote. Of course, it was also because of Lu Yidao's hard work. If it weren't for Lu Yidao drawing the pattern of the banknote on the soft steel plate, Li Zixuan wouldn't have been able to carve the mother version of the banknote in such a short time, even if he had the wind-chasing sword that could cut through iron like mud. In the workshop, when Faubert received the mother version of the banknote from Pang Feiji, he couldn't help but be shocked. Obviously, he didn't expect Li Zixuan to work so hard and stay up all night to carve the mother version of the banknote. From this detail, Faubert also understood how important Li Zixuan was to this matter. Therefore, he suddenly felt a sense of urgency in his heart. Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi. Faubert carefully kept the mother version of the banknote and shouted towards the outside of the house. Hey! Manager Fu, you're here. Song Xiaoxi quickly ran in from outside the house and bowed. Faubert asked, Xiaoxi, is the water pattern roller done at the steel mill? Regarding the water pattern paper that Li Zixuan had told him about yesterday, he had already sent someone to buy the materials. Now, he only lacked the water pattern roller to modify the paper machine. This step was the most crucial step in the production of the water pattern paper. Manager Fu, please wait a moment. I'll go take a look now. Song Xiaoxi responded and quickly ran out. When Lu Yidao learned that Li Zixuan had sent the soft steel master plate to the workshop this morning, he was both shocked and stressed. That was because Li Zixuan, a layman who knew nothing about engraving, could engrave such a large piece of soft steel master plate with so many complicated patterns in just one night. As an old guy who had been engraving for decades, if he was too slow, how could he face Li Zixuan in the future? It just so happened that he had a stand-mounted magnifying glass in his house. The condition was much better than before, and there was no reason for him to slow Li Zixuan down. Therefore, Lu Yidao immediately began his closed-door training and began to carve the anti-counterfeit seal that Li Zixuan asked him to carve. On Yunshan Mountain, Li Zixuan slept all the way until evening. Around 5 p.m., he slowly woke up from his sleep. He felt a pain in his head. This was the after-effect of staying up late. Last night, he was not only mentally exhausted, but also physically exhausted. He couldn't help but rub his temples. After a long time, he finally felt a little better. Husband, you're finally awake. Are you hungry? I've made some congee with pork and century egg. Have some to fill your stomach. Han Yushi's voice came faintly. Li Zixuan heard it and nodded subconsciously. Yes, yes. Thank you, wife. At this moment, his stomach was indeed empty. After a while, Han Yushi brought a bowl of congee with pork and century egg. Li Zixuan tested it slightly. It wasn't hot and the temperature was just right. Han Yushi must have kept the congee warm in the pot and waited for him to wake up so that she could bring it to him directly. Thinking of this, Li Zixuan couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. In terms of thoughtfulness, his wife was the most considerate. Li Zixuan looked at Han Yushi gratefully. The husband and wife looked at each other and smiled tacitly. At this time, Li Zixuan asked while eating, Wife, is there any news from the workshop today? Han Yushi glanced at Li Zixuan and said faintly, Husband, you want to ask about Master Lu, right? Don't rush them too much. I heard that in order to help you carve the seal, Master Lu didn't leave the house for the whole day. If you rush them again, Master Lu will be exhausted. Even if it's urgent, it doesn't have to be in a hurry for 1 or 2 days. Wife, you're right. Li Zixuan touched his nose embarrassedly. After listening to Han Yushi's words, why did he feel that he had become an evil capitalist who desperately exploited his employees? And you, husband, I've heard you persuade me before that staying up late is not good for your health. But why did you stay up so long last night? Our family doesn't lack anything now. Husband, why do you have to be so anxious to do things? Han Yushi sighed faintly again. Li Zixuan was even more speechless at this time. Han Yushi's words were reasonable, and he couldn't find a reason to refute them. In fact, his habit of staying up late when something happened was completely in his nature. In the 3 years of his graduate studies in his previous life, because of the research tasks assigned by the teachers above, he didn't know how many nights he had stayed up late. Especially when it was close to graduation and rushing to finish his thesis, he would stay up late almost every 2 or 3 days. That was simply putting his life on the line. This was the persistence of an engineering student. It was also the most admirable thing about the scientists who struggled on the front lines in his previous life. In this life, Li Zixuan vowed to let the scientific researchers enjoy the best treatment. His original intention of founding Yanhuang College was also for this. Ahem. Good. My wife is right. Your husband will not stay up late in the future. The strange thing was that after Han Yushi rambled on for so long, Li Zixuan didn't feel annoyed at all. Instead, he felt a little warm in his heart. Perhaps this was the unique advantage of a beautiful woman when it came to preaching. The next day, Li Zixuan saw that there was still no news from the workshop. In order not to pressure Faubert and Louis Dao, he didn't go over. Thinking of some things that Lantian County's county magistrate, he told him a few days ago, Li Zixuan wanted to personally go to Lantian County to take a look. But he suddenly remembered that his confinement period wasn't over yet, so he could only give up on it. Since he couldn't leave Yunshan, Li Zixuan could only stay in the study room to plan his marquee mansion in Lantian County. This was the true marquee mansion of Yong'an. After all, it was built on his fief in the name of the government. Last year, he had planned to wait until the new year to expand the side courtyard on Yunshan. Now, it seemed that there was no need to expand the side courtyard. When the marquee mansion was built, no matter how many people there were in his family, the marquee mansion would be able to accommodate them. Therefore, the future marquee mansion must be big. Li Zixuan planned to build his marquee mansion into a luxurious mansion with an ancient manor as its foundation, but with modern-style interior facilities. After all, as a marquee mansion, its appearance should be more formal. Therefore, he didn't use the style of the Academy's high-rise buildings, but used the style of the Tang Dynasty's manor. As the manor's blueprints flashed through his mind, the content on the Xian paper on the table gradually became richer. Chapter 12:20. An official with a luxurious manor, if placed in modern times, would definitely be seen as a symbol of corruption in the eyes of many people. However, Li Zixuan wasn't afraid of this kind of criticism because every penny he earned was clean. He wasn't afraid of being investigated. Anyway, a person worked hard to earn money, didn't he just want to enjoy it? He spent his own money to build a manor for himself. What could others say about it? In the afternoon, Song Xiaoxi finally sent news that everything in the workshop was ready. They were waiting for Li Zixuan to personally instruct them on the next step of the task. Li Zixuan was overjoyed. He quickly put on his cloak and went down Yunshan with Song Xiaoxi. They went straight to the workshop. "Young master, you're here?" When Uncle Fu saw that Li Zixuan had finally arrived, he hurriedly went up to greet him. Li Zixuan smiled, looked at Faubert and Louis Dao and said, "Well, Faubert, Master Liu, I heard that everything is ready. You've worked hard these 2 days." The two of them said that it was not hard. Louis Dao was a little ashamed. He said, "Marquis, it took me nearly 2 days to carve this seal. Compared with Marquis's speed, my nickname, Louis Dao, seems to be undeserved." Li Zixuan shook his head. "Master Liu, you're just wasting time on an insignificant problem. It's because this Marquis is skilled in martial arts that I sometimes move a little faster than ordinary people. Master Liu, for you to carve this seal in 2 days is already not easy. In all of the Great Tang, the number of people who can do what you have done can be counted on one hand. Marquis, you're flattering me." When Louis Dao heard this, a smile appeared on his face. Then, he quickly replied modestly, "Ahem. Young master, a batch of watermarked paper has been made this morning. Some of them should have been dried by now. What do you think next?" Fu Bo coughed dryly and got down to business. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Faubert, come with me to take a look." They came to a factory on the east side, where the workshop made paper. "Young master, this is the water pattern paper. Please take a look and see if the talisman meets the requirements," Faubert said to Li Zixuan as he pointed at the sheets of white paper hanging under an old locust tree in the courtyard. Li Zixuan took a few steps forward and found a piece of dried paper. He took it down from the shelf and looked at it carefully under the sunlight. He saw that on the white paper there were neatly arranged dark characters, Tang. After spreading the paper flat, the dark words disappeared again. People who saw it for the first time might find it magical, but for Li Zixuan, a modern person, it was not strange at all. However, he was quite satisfied with the quality of the paper. Just the texture alone was not comparable to that of ordinary paper. "Yes, that's right. Faubert, next, use the soft steel master plate I gave you yesterday to imprint the pattern on it. The material used to press the steel plate must be heavy. The heavier the better. Otherwise, it won't show the effect." Li Zixuan nodded with satisfaction, put down the water pattern paper in his hand, and said to Faubert, "Yes, I understand young master's meaning. I'll arrange it now." Faubert replied with a smile. Now that the printing technology in the workshop was quite mature, the most difficult part of the concave printing technology was the engraving of the plate. The actual imprinting process was not complicated, so when Li Zixuan roughly explained it, Faubert understood what to do. Faubert used an hour to set up a temporary concave imprinting workbench. The water pattern paper to be imprinted was fixed. The soft steel master plate was also attached to the bottom of a square boulder. After the master plate was dipped in green ink, it was manually pulled to control the boulder to press on a specific position on the water pattern paper. After the ink in the groove of the master plate had dried, the boulder was pulled up and the first side of the water pattern paper was imprinted. Using the same method, the second side was quickly imprinted. The tailor in the workshop carefully cut off the imprinted banknote and handed it to Li Zixuan. 1 Tang Yuan. Great Tang's Yanwang Bank. After seeing the well-printed 1 Tang Yuan banknote in his hand, Li Zixuan felt a sense of accomplishment in his heart. This was the first edition banknote of Great Tang, and also the first edition banknote in the history of China. He could really leave his name in history. The color of the Tang Yuan banknote was mainly green, and the patterns on it were very dense. 1 Tang Yuan was written on the bottom left corner, and Great Tang's Yanwang Bank was written on the top of the back. The 1 Tang Yuan banknote was a little similar to the modern 1 yuan, but there was no portrait on it, so it looked much simpler. "Young master," this old man forgot to ask earlier, "what does the 1 Tang Yuan written on it mean? And what is Great Tang's Yanwang Bank?" Faubert also felt that the banknote in Li Zixuan's hand was very exquisite, but he had some doubts about the words on the banknote. Li Zixuan's expression turned serious. He dismissed his subordinates and said in a deep voice, "Faubert, Master Lu, come here. I have something to tell you." The issue of banknotes was no small matter. The workshop had to make thorough arrangements. In Faubert's office, Li Zixuan told Faubert and Master Lu about the banknotes in Yanhuang College. The two of them were obsessed with technology their whole lives, but they were not good at economics. Therefore, they did not comment on Li Zixuan's actions. "Young master, although it is indeed more convenient to use Tang Yuan to replace the copper coins in the college, we have to strictly control the workshop. Otherwise, if someone with ulterior motives steals the mother version or the printed banknotes, it will be a big loss for you." Having personally experienced the production and printing of banknotes, Faubert knew very well that it was no different from a fantasy for others to imitate banknotes. He was worried that there would be greedy people in the workshop. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Faubert, this is also what I want to tell you. In the near future, Faubert, you should organize a group of trustworthy people as soon as possible and set up a separate team to print Tang Yuan for me. You will personally take care of the mother version of Tang Yuan. As for the seal engraved by Master Lu, I will take care of it. In the future, every batch of Tang Yuan will be printed with a number. Faubert, you will regularly check according to the number to prevent someone from secretly stealing it. Faubert agreed with him and said, Young master, this is a brilliant method. In this way, we can prevent many cases of Tang Yuan being stolen. Master Lu, Faubert has a lot of work to do. In the future, you will have to take care of this team of Tang Yuan printing, Li Zixuan said to Louis Dao. Old Lu had been in the workshop for nearly a year and was considered an old man. In terms of loyalty, there was no doubt. Okay. This old man will. Louis Dao replied with a smile. Li Zixuan nodded and chatted with the two for a while. Then, he left the workshop with the world's first Tang Yuan and went to Yunshan. Chapter 12:21. Yamacho. After leaving the workshop, Li Zixuan went straight to Yanwang College and asked someone to call Li Ku over. Have a seat. Li Zixuan pointed to the sofa opposite him. Thank you, Yamacho. Li Ku thanked him and sat opposite Li Zixuan. Little Ku, how are the preparations on your side? Li Zixuan asked calmly. The preparations he was referring to were the preparations for the introduction of paper currency in the college. Li Ku replied, Yamacho, I've already spoken to Gu Xiaomao. He said that he supports the college's introduction of Tang Yuan. Although he didn't say it explicitly, I can see his concern. He's worried that someone will make fake Tang Yuan and buy things from him. Li Ku was the king of Han, so Gu Xiaomao had to give him some face no matter what. Moreover, Tang Yuan was the currency that Li Zixuan had promoted. The Gu family's wealth today was all because of Li Zixuan's help. Therefore, no matter what, he had to support this Tang Yuan. Li Zixuan heard this and smiled confidently. Tell him not to worry. I'll teach everyone how to differentiate between real and fake Tang Yuan. As long as they remember the characteristics of the real Tang Yuan, they won't be cheated by fake Tang Yuan. Li Ku's eyes lit up. So, Yamacho, you're very confident in Tang Yuan's security? Haha. Of course. Li Zixuan smiled proudly. Little Ku, you don't have to worry about Tang Yuan's security. The most important thing now is to set up the Yanwang Bank as soon as possible. How does Yamacho plan to set it up? Since the Tang Yuan was initially only circulated within the academy, I plan to invest 100,000 strings of cash to enter the bank as a deposit. Anyone in the academy who has a Tang Yuan can exchange it for copper coins equivalent to the face value of the Tang Yuan. Similarly, they can also exchange copper coins for Tang Yuan of the same value. Li Ku was puzzled. Yamacho, why do you need so much money as a deposit? I think that with your prestige in the academy, there's no need for that at all. Logically speaking, 100,000 strings of copper coins was definitely a shocking amount of wealth. Even if Li Ku was born into the royal family, he did not have that much wealth. Li Zixuan smiled and explained, Little Ku, there is a problem that you need to understand. Tang Yuan is just a kind of credit currency. It has no value in itself because it is not a commodity. The so-called value was the indiscriminate human labor condensed in the goods. When humans produced goods, they had to consume human labor. Labor could form value. The greater the amount of labor, the greater the value. The smaller the amount of labor, the smaller the value. Only goods had value. On the other hand, Tang Yuan did not consume human labor, so he was not a commodity and had no value. Therefore, as a trustworthy currency, if you want people to believe in it, you must have real gold and silver as a guarantee. Otherwise, if you want to rely on a piece of paper with patterns and lines to make people obediently give you their hard-earned money, how can there be such a beautiful thing in the world? Tang Yuan was a kind of paper money. Those who studied political economy knew that paper money only had a use value, but it had no value. Therefore, it could not be used as a commodity. Paper money had no value, so it could not be used to measure the value of other commodities. Therefore, paper money could not be used as a measure of value. In the first year of the Northern Song Dynasty, when the jiaozi first appeared, 16 wealthy merchants in Chengdu jointly invested 360,000 strings of copper coins as a deposit. Under the organization of Zhang Yong, the Izhou jiaozi was established. That was when the history of China's currency officially began. Trustworthy currency? Commodity? Value? When Li Ke heard these new terms, his mind couldn't help but be confused. He paused for a long time and barely digested about 50 to 60% of it. He then asked, Yamacho, then when students exchange copper coins for Tang yuan or Tang yuan for copper coins, will the bank charge a certain amount of fees? Otherwise, how will they survive? When Li Zixuan heard this, he looked at Li Ku in surprise. He thought that this kid was a promising talent. He could even think of something like a fee without a teacher. Haha. Little Ku, your suggestion is very good. But in the early stages, the Yanhuang Bank only serves the academy and not to make money. When the Tang Yuan is recognized by more people, we will implement your suggestion. Li Zixuan looked at Li Ku and praised him. Yamacho is benevolent and righteous. Li Ku could hear the praise in Li Zixuan's words and felt a little happy. Little Ku, you seem to be very interested in the matter of money? Li Zixuan asked with deep meaning. Li Ku scratched his head and said embarrassedly, I'm not interested. I just feel that if I use mathematics in the area of money, there should be unexpected results. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Little Ku, I'm very pleased that you can think of this. Actually, money also has a lot of knowledge. I call it economics. If you're really interested in it, I can teach you in the future. Since Li Ku was so passionate about economics, he would guide him in this direction. After all, if the Yanhuang Bank were to expand in the future, the imperial family would definitely have a stake in it. After he nurtured Li Ku, he could let Li Ku participate in the daily management of the bank as a representative of the imperial family. That's great. Thank you, Yamacho. Li Ku stood up in surprise and clasped his hands to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, I can't teach you much. At most, I can bring you under the tutelage. However, I hope that you remember that economics is broad and profound. It's a powerful sword, but at the same time, it's also a scourge. If used well, the country will be rich and the people will be strong. If you act recklessly because of a moment of greed, the powerful sword will turn into a scourge and cause the Tang Empire's economy to collapse. Thus, as long as you are involved in economics in the future, you must maintain a respectful heart. Actually, he wanted to explain the way of banking to Li Ku. The Yanhuang Bank was like the banks in his previous life. Once the Tang Yuan currency became popular in the Tang Empire, the Yanhuang Bank would become an important department comparable to the Ministry of Revenue and directly control the economic lifeline of the Tang Empire. At that time, if someone couldn't resist the temptation of money and started to issue excessive amounts of money, the Tang Empire's economy would definitely collapse. Wasn't the Ming Dynasty's banknotes the same? Li Ku said seriously, Yamacho, I will remember what you said today and never forget it. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Then you can go and do your work. The Tang Yuan and the bank will be activated in 2 days. You can come over to help then. Yes, Yamacho. Chapter 12:22. Zhenguan First Year, February 5th, Yanhuang College Calendar, Friday. When it was close to noon, thousands of ox carts carrying brand new copper coins suddenly entered the gates of the college. A copper coin weighed about 5 to 6 caddies. 100,000 strings of cash would be 500,000 to 600,000 caddies. If they were to be transported by ox carts, wouldn't they be carrying thousands of ox carts? Such a huge commotion naturally attracted the attention of many students, especially those who were sitting by the windows facing the entrance of the academy. The students who were sitting by the windows and in the middle of class immediately saw the spectacular scene below Guanghua Tower. F***ck. There's so much money downstairs. Our academy is going to be rich. On the second floor of Guanghua Building, Class 1, Wang Meng was sitting by the window. At this time, he was already hungry and was looking forward to getting out of school to eat. Inadvertently, he glanced out of the window and caught a glimpse of a vast number of ox carts pulling copper coins. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The teacher who was lecturing in the classroom and the students who were listening to the lecture all turned their gazes in this direction in an instant. Wang Meng, stand up. Who allowed you to make such a racket in class? Class 1's lesson was mathematics. The teacher was Su Hongji. Old Su's expression was very ugly. Any teacher who encountered such a troublemaker in their class would have an ugly expression. Mr. Su, I was wrong. There's really a lot of money outside. There are thousands of ox carts, right? Look if you don't believe me. Wang Meng shrunk his neck, but he couldn't help but glance out the window. F***ck. There's really a lot of money. Isn't that Yamacho? Why did he suddenly bring so much money to the college? Ching Chumo half squatted and stretched his neck towards the window. When he saw the countless ox carts outside, he couldn't help but make a fuss. As the saying goes, 3 people make a tiger. After the 2 of them said that, the students in the classroom couldn't sit still, especially those who were sitting by the window. One by one, they stretched their heads to look outside. Wow! There's really a lot of money. There's hundreds of carts, right? Hundreds? There should be thousands. Thousands? Oh my God, how much money is that? The previously quiet classroom was immediately filled with buzzing sounds of discussion. Many of the students sitting in the middle stood up and stretched their necks to look out the window. Quiet. Be quiet. Su Hongji angrily glared at Ching Chumo and Wang Meng, and hurriedly spoke to maintain order. Similar situations were happening in the other classes as well. Originally, there was only the sound of teachers lecturing in Guanghua Building. However, when it was close to the end of the school day, there was suddenly a burst of noise. However, this noise was quickly suppressed by the teachers in the various teaching buildings. Clang, clang, clang. After waiting for a long time, the students finally came to the end of class. When the bell and drum sounded, the students of each class swarmed out of Guanghua Building, not to compete for food, but to see the money. It wasn't that they hadn't seen money before, but most of them had never seen so much money. Thousands of carts of copper coins. This scene was too spectacular. No wonder they would swarm out to see the curiosity. At this time, there were still many ox carts loaded with copper coins outside Guanghua Building. After all, it was impossible to store so many copper coins in the warehouse in such a short time, no matter what. Damn, where is all this money being transported to? The students quickly discovered that the ox carts were slowly lining up and moving in one direction. They couldn't help but follow behind, wanting to find out what was going on. It wasn't that they didn't think of asking the people beside the ox carts. However, the ones pulling the ox carts today weren't the Academy's guards, but the soldiers of the Right Marquee Guard. Li Zishuan had borrowed them from Yuchi Jingda. Most of them wanted to ask, but they didn't know the others. How could they ask? However, there were always people who knew them. Hey, Big Brother Shun, why are you here? Yuchi Baolin hurriedly asked when he saw someone familiar. His father was the great general of the Right Marquee Guard. It wasn't surprising that he knew a soldier of the Right Marquee Guard. Young master, Marquis wishes to transfer 100,000 strings of copper coins from Chang unto the Academy. The great general has ordered us to escort him along the way. The soldier cupped his fists and said, 100,000 strings of copper coins? Why did the Yamacho suddenly transfer so much money? Ching Chumo couldn't help but ask. The soldier replied with a straight face, this general doesn't know. Hey, look, These copper coins are all transported to this building. The students followed the ox carts and finally found the final destination of the 100,000 strings of copper coins. It was a small 3-story building near the Academy's library. It hadn't been used since it was built. Today was the first time they saw someone enter this building. Yanhuang Bank? What's that? The attentive students suddenly noticed the huge signboard in front of the building. The words Yanhuang Bank were written on it. After they saw it, they were all puzzled. Little Ku, I see that you've been looking for the Yamacho a lot recently. You should know what this Yanhuang Bank does, right? Li Tai also came to see the commotion. When he saw the words Yanhuang Bank, he turned to Li Ku and asked. Li Ku didn't hide it from him and said frankly, yes. The Yamacho intends to introduce a paper currency that can replace copper coins in the Academy. This Yanhuang Bank is the department in charge of exchanging this currency. Paper currency? What's paper currency? Li Tai didn't understand. Li Ku and Li Zixuan had talked so many times that they often used professional terms. At this moment, he thought for a moment and explained, Qin-Ke, you can understand it this way. This paper currency is a certificate that can be exchanged for copper coins. It's mainly to make it convenient for everyone to buy things. They don't have to carry a bag of copper coins all day. That's a good thing. Li Tai's eyes lit up with excitement. Yamacho, why are you bringing so many copper coins to the Academy? After class, Yen Silu found Li Zixuan and asked. There was a hint of dissatisfaction in his voice because Li Zixuan's flaunting behavior had affected the Academy's normal teaching in the morning. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Mr. Yen, I was just about to look for you. Please inform all the teachers in the Academy to gather in the conference room for a meeting at noon. I have something important to announce. You'll know the answer to the question you asked just now in a while. Yen Silla was stunned for a moment and could only reply, Okay. I'll go inform the teachers in the Academy now. After that, he didn't ask any more questions and turned to leave. Chapter 12:23. Yamacho, everyone is here. At noon, in the large conference room on the first floor of Yanhuang College, the teachers of the college walked in one after another. Seeing that everyone was present, Mo Zhong went up to Li Zixuan and whispered, Let's start the meeting now. Li Zixuan slapped the table and said in a deep voice. The teachers in the conference room all looked over. They were all waiting for Li Zixuan to give a reasonable explanation for the large amount of copper coins that the college had brought over this morning. However, most of them guessed that Li Zixuan was definitely going to make a big move. At this time, Mo Zhong brought over a plate of paper with green lines printed on it. Li Zixuan ordered softly, Distribute it. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, Mo Zhong gave everyone in the room 10 strips of paper with patterns printed on them. Li Gang held the paper in his hand and looked it up and down. After seeing the intricate patterns and Chinese characters on it, he took the lead and asked, Yamacho, what does this mean? Li Zixuan saw that everyone had received 2 pieces of Tang Yuan. He smiled and said, All right. Everyone must have received 10 pieces of paper. These pieces of paper are not ordinary. From today onwards, these pieces of paper will replace the copper coins in the college and become a new currency. What? This thing replaces the copper coins? Then what does Tang Yuan and Tang Jiao mean? And what is Tang Yanhuang Bank? I know about this. The 100,000 strings of copper coins that Mountain Elder brought over today are in a house with the plaque of the Yanhuang Bank in the Academy. As soon as Li Zixuan's voice fell, there was a burst of whispers in the room. It wasn't that they were making a fuss, but that the copper coin was already deeply ingrained in their minds. Now that Li Zixuan suddenly announced that he would use this thin piece of paper to replace the copper coin, how could they accept it in such a short time? Ahem. I know that all of you are confused, but it is imperative that we replace the copper coins with Tang Yuan in the Academy. Oh, I call the paper in your hands Tang Yuan. There are 10 different denominations of Tang Yuan. The smallest is 1 Tang Jiao, which corresponds to 1 copper coin. There are 5 Tang Jiao, 10 Tang Jiao, 50 Tang Jiao, and 100 Tang Jiao, which correspond to 5, 10, 50, and 100 copper coins respectively. Above that were the Tang Yuan. 1 Tang Yuan corresponded to 1 copper coin. Above that were 5, 10, 50, and 100 Tang Yuan. They corresponded to 5, 10, 50, and 100 copper coins respectively. In order to convince everyone of Tang Yuan's value, I have decided to personally invest 100,000 strings of cash as a deposit to establish the Yen Huang Bank. These 100,000 strings of cash have all been deposited today. I believe everyone has seen it. I can guarantee you that as long as I, Li Zixuan, am the Yamacho of Yanhuang College, the 100,000 strings of copper coins will never be taken away. At any time, as long as someone brought Tang Yuan over, they would definitely be able to exchange it for copper coins. In the future, no matter if you want to exchange copper coins for Tang Yuan or exchange Tang Yuan for copper coins, you can go to the Yen Huang Bank to do it. Furthermore, as the students of Yanhuang College, you can enjoy the treatment of waiving processing fees when you do business with the bank for the rest of your life. In addition, the college's canteen, grocery store, and future salaries and scholarships will all be settled using Tang Yuan. Copper coins will no longer be allowed. The Tang Yuan that you receive can be exchanged for copper coins. You can also buy food or other items in the college, or at the Drunken Immortal Restaurant, Cheatsu Pavilion, Cheatsu Culture, and ready-made clothing stores under my name. Therefore, in summary, replacing copper coins with Tang Yuan will not cause any losses to you. On the contrary, it will bring great convenience to everyone. What do you all think? Li Zixuan's low voice resounded throughout the conference room. His grand plan was finally revealed to everyone. After hearing it, the students of the college widened their eyes in disbelief. They were all shocked by Li Zixuan's proposal. The bank, 100,000 strings of cash, Tang Yuan, they had never heard of these new concepts before, but after hearing them, they had to admit that Li Zixuan's Tang Yuan would indeed bring great convenience to people. However, Yamacho, Tang Yuan is indeed much more convenient to carry around than copper coins, but what if a large number of imitation Tang Yuan appear? Wouldn't the Yen Huang Bank lose all its money? Li Gang himself did not like the cumbersome copper coins. As an old man, he usually did not carry copper coins when he went out. However, Li Gang was worried that Li Zixuan's bank would go bankrupt due to the proliferation of counterfeit coins. Therefore, he kindly reminded him. That's right. Yamacho, what if someone imitates Tang Yuan? The rest of the teachers also chimed in. They did not have any objections to using Tang Yuan to pay them. After all, it was guaranteed by Li Zixuan's reputation and could be exchanged for copper coins at any time. Moreover, the shock of the 100,000 strings of cash in the morning had not dissipated yet. They were mainly worried that Tang Yuan would be imitated. If they accidentally received counterfeit coins in the future, they would have to bear the losses themselves. Haha! You all have underestimated Tang Yuan. Don't worry, Tang Yuan's production and printing process are extremely complicated. It is absolutely impossible for ordinary people to imitate. Next, I will explain the characteristics of Tang Yuan to everyone. Li Zixuan smiled confidently. Then, he picked up a 100 Tang Yuan banknote and said, "Everyone, feel this Tang Yuan banknote and feel its texture. Is it different from all the paper you've used before?" Everyone followed his instructions and picked up the Tang Yuan on the table. Using 2 fingers, they carefully rubbed it and instantly felt the difference. The texture of this Tang Yuan is really special. The texture is superb. Even the best Xian paper can't compare. The students from the academy were all surprised. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "I believe everyone has also felt it." This Tang Yuan's texture is smooth and delicate. It is tough and resistant to bending, and it is very flat. If you shake it in the air with your hands, or pull it tight and loose, or use your fingers to lightly flick the surface of the Tang Yuan, it will make a clear and crisp sound. As for ordinary paper, first of all, the texture is soft and rough, and the tensile strength is insufficient. It is very easy to break, and if it is shaken in the air, the sound it makes will be somewhat dull. Just based on this point, we can distinguish many authentic Tang Yuan. Pa pa pa. After Li Zixuan finished speaking, most of the people in the room could not help but pick up the Tang Yuan in their hands and start to shake or flick it according to his instructions. For a moment, the room was filled with the sound of pa pa pa. It really is. Listening to the sound, it is different from ordinary paper. This paper must be made with special materials. Yamacho's workshop is really amazing. But what if there is a ginseng that knows the method of making this paper? What should we do? Chapter 12:24. He. Everyone, please be quiet. In the meeting room, Li Zixuan secretly listened to the discussion of the teachers and continued. Just now, I heard someone worried that the paper used to make Tang Yuan had been stolen. What would happen? Or what would happen if someone made paper similar to Tang Yuan? I can confidently say that the above two situations are absolutely impossible. First of all, texture is only the most common characteristic of Tang Yuan. Next, everyone, please put your Tang Yuan under the sun and see what happens. Before Li Zixuan could finish, someone impatiently flattened the Tang Yuan and looked at the window. There are words. This Tang Yuan can actually show words under the sun. This is too magical. Where is it? There really is. Not only can it show words, but it can also show patterns. Could this be the legendary heavenly book? Legend has it that in ancient times, there was a magical heavenly book. Ordinary people could not see any words and could only read it by using a special method to make the words appear. At this moment, someone actually linked the magical phenomenon of Tang Yuan to the heavenly book. Their imagination was really novel. Everyone, do you see it clearly now? Apart from the special paper used for Tang Yuan, there is also something special about it. Also, touch the surface of this Tang Yuan. Don't you feel a bumpy texture? Just based on these 2 points, it is definitely not something that can be produced by an ordinary workshop. In the future, Yanhuang Bank will also provide you with the service of verifying the authenticity of your currency for free. If you receive any suspicious Tang Yuan, you can take it for verification. The bank will have a special method to verify the authenticity of your Tang Yuan. In addition, every Tang Yuan will have a unique number and an anti-counterfeiting seal from the bank. This seal is also difficult for outsiders to copy. Emozhong, distribute a magnifying glass to each of the teachers. Having said that, Li Zixuan suddenly turned his head and instructed Emozhong. Yes, Yamacho. Emozhong responded and took out a cardboard box from behind the door. Inside the box were all handheld magnifying glasses. Emozhong gave one to each of the gentlemen. Besides Li Zixuan and Mo Huai, it was the first time the others had seen such a thing, and they couldn't help but be greatly surprised. Li Zixuan gave them a simple explanation of how to use it, then said, "That's right. Gentlemen, please use this magnifying glass and take a closer look at this seal. You will definitely find an unexpected surprise." To be honest, after experiencing so many surprises before, the teachers of the academy felt that no matter what happened next, they would not be surprised anymore. However, after magnifying the seal several times with a magnifying glass, many people still could not help but exclaim, Oh my God! There are over 100 words in this small seal. The Tao that can be Tao is not an ordinary Tao. The name that can be named is not an ordinary name. The nameless beginning of heaven and earth, the nameless mother of all things. The words in this chapter were the first 3 chapters of the Tao Te Ching. Oh no, there are a few typos in it. Taoism was the state religion in the Tang Dynasty, so there was no problem with using Laozi's Tao Te Ching. Typos? How could there be typos? The person who carved the seal must have done it on purpose, right? After all, only the wrong words are unique. That's possible. Overall, this Tang Yuan is too difficult to imitate. At this moment, everyone was convinced. They were completely convinced by the many black technologies hidden in Tang Yuan. They felt that Tang Yuan, with so many black technologies, was even harder to imitate than copper coins. Haha. Now, do you have any objections to using Tang Yuan to replace copper coins in the academy? Li Zishuan asked with a smile. Yamacho, I have no objections. Li Gang was the first to express his opinion. He was now living and eating on Mount Yun. Unless the emperor summoned him, he would not leave the mountain under normal circumstances. In this way, Tang Yuan would be in his hands. Even if he did not exchange it for copper coins, he could still use it. This would ensure that he did not have to worry about food and clothing. Moreover, compared to copper coins, Tang Yuan was much more convenient to carry around. For Li Gang, what reason did he have to disagree? Yamacho, I have no objections. I have no objections either. Me neither. For a moment, everyone in the meeting expressed their opinions. No one objected. Tang Yuan was not only convenient to carry around, but also difficult to imitate. Moreover, with Li Zishuan as the guarantor, it was also very valuable. They would not agree unless their brains were short-circuited. On the other hand, the monthly salary of the teachers in Yanhuang College was relatively high. Most of them were around 4 or 5 strings of coins. If Li Zishuan did not recommend Tang Yuan, their annual salary would probably be a few £100 of copper coins. It was not easy to find a place to store them, let alone carry them around. Since that is the case, I announce that from today onwards, all monetary transactions in the college will be conducted using Tang Yuan. Not only for the teachers, but also for the students. Alright, today's meeting has come to an end. Everyone, please hand over the Tang Yuan and magnifying glasses in your hand. Each class's form teachers can leave the Tang Yuan and magnifying glasses behind. In the afternoon, you will take a class to convey the contents of this meeting to all the students in the class. Moreover, you must teach the students how to distinguish between the real Tang Yuan and the fake Tang Yuan. You must teach them seriously. I will also do random checks later. Remember to return the Tang Yuan and magnifying glasses after teaching them. Dismissed. Ah! When everyone heard this, they were all stunned. They thought that Li Zishuan would give all the Tang Yuan to them. They did not expect him to take them back. This was the first time they had seen such a stingy Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan caught a glimpse of everyone's expression and almost vomited blood. How could he be considered stingy? Everyone in the room had close to 200 strings of Tang Yuan. If he did not take them back, wouldn't it be asking for his life? Even if he was rich, he could not make such a big fuss. These Tang Yuan added up were equivalent to a year's salary of all the teachers in the college. How could he waste them like this? Yes, Yamacho. The teachers in the college also knew that the Tang Yuan in their hands was not a small number. Therefore, other than the form teachers of each class, the rest of the teachers handed over their Tang Yuan and left the meeting room one after another. Speaking of which, they did not even have time to eat lunch in order to participate in this meeting. Sigh. I finally convinced the teachers in the college. Li Zishuan stood up and sighed with a sense of accomplishment. Speaking of which, from today onwards, the history of China's currency would officially enter a new era. Yanhuang Bank would become the first real bank in human history. Chapter 12:25. What? The Academy will no longer use copper coins and will use Tang Yuan instead? In the afternoon, The class teachers relayed Li Zixuan's message, and the students were all shocked. However, what shocked them even more was what happened next. Because right after that, the head teachers talked about Tang Yuan's unique characteristics that were difficult to imitate. This made the students even more interested in Tang Yuan. Damn! This Tang Yuan looks good and is easy to carry around. Who doesn't like it? After class, I'll immediately exchange all my money for Tang Yuan. Ching Chumo laughed arrogantly after hearing that. He could get hundreds of strings of cash from his family every month. Although he had a lot of money, he was starting to worry about where to put it, how to carry it around. One must know that 100 strings of cash was 500 to 600 pounds. Even if Ching Chumo had martial arts and was stronger than others, he would not stupidly carry 500 to 600 pounds of cash on his body every day. The appearance of the Tang Yuan perfectly solved his problem. He no longer had to worry about having too much money. Haha. Chon Yo is right. The printing of the Tang Yuan is so exquisite and Yamacho is vouching for it. What's there to worry about? I have to exchange all my money for Tang Yuan. Actually, Li Zixuan did not need to take out 100,000 strings of cash as a deposit. He underestimated his influence among the students. His name, his reputation, and his reputation were far more valuable than 100,000 strings of cash. In order to allow the students to exchange for Tang Yuan in time and not affect the students going home at night, only 3 classes were held in the afternoon before the break. The students of the Yanhuang Academy immediately swarmed into the Yanhuang Bank. Most of these students were from wealthy families, and each of them had a weekly allowance of more than 10 strings of coins. So when they exchanged for the Tang Yuan, each of them carried a big bag of copper coins. Little Ku, not bad. I heard that you came up with the idea of Tang Yuan. You're amazing. Li Tai also brought 10 strings of cash to join in the fun. He had no choice but to come. The Academy's cafeteria and grocery store had all stopped using Tang Yuan. If he did not come to exchange for some money, he would not be able to eat next week. However, he couldn't carry any more copper coins. 10 coins was already his upper limit. Li Ku was a martial artist, so he naturally carried more copper coins than Li Tai. There were about 20 strings of coins in total, and he was only carrying them with one hand. It seemed like he did not expend any effort at all. Hearing Li Tai's praise, Li Ku scratched his head with his other hand. Qingke, I did not come up with the idea of Tang Yuan. I only gave some suggestions. The design, printing, anti-counterfeiting, and the establishment of the Yanhuang Bank. They were all done by Yamacho. I dare not take credit for it. Haha. Little Ku, why are you being so humble? No matter what, this Tang Yuan has solved a huge problem for me. In the future, I can casually bring a few hundred strings of coins with me when I go out. Nouveau riche, Ching Chumo laughed arrogantly. More than 10 people came to the Yanhuang Bank today. Last year, Li Zixuan wanted to introduce a new type of mathematics to the whole country. So it was easy for Li Zixuan to recruit a large number of mathematics and bookkeeping experts for the bank. The bank was temporarily managed by his family's housekeeper, Wang Zhong. Li Zixuan planned to send Li Ku to the bank when he was almost done learning. After all, real knowledge comes from practice. Even though there were a lot of students, there were more than a dozen queues. On average, each queue only had about 50 to 60 people. The people Li Zixuan had recruited for the bank were all old fellows. They were very experienced in counting money and keeping accounts. In just an hour, all the students had exchanged the copper coins they had brought with them into paper money. Most of the students were exchanging for 10 Tang Jiao, 50 Tang Jiao, 100 Tang Jiao, and 1 Tang Yuan. It wasn't that they couldn't afford the higher denominations, but that they couldn't carry so many copper coins. Many of the rich second generation, or the second generation of officials, had already made up their minds. During the weekends, they would definitely get their servants to bring a cart full of copper coins to exchange for Tang Yuan. This way, they wouldn't have to come here every once in a while to exchange for Tang Yuan. Around 5 p.m., the students who lived near the academy carried their bags and returned home with their Tang Yuan. The peaceful Chang'an city was about to be stirred up by the return of these students. What are you carrying? It looks very nice. Oh right, do you have enough money? If not, I'll give you some more. Gi Lane, Meng Wenhao's house. After dinner, Meng Yuliang said to his son. The Meng family was no longer what it used to be. When Meng Yuliang returned from the sea, he was awarded the title of 8th grade Xuanjie Commandant and was rewarded with a lot of money. The Meng family had completely changed from a humble class. As for his own son, Meng Yuliang had high hopes for him. This was because he understood that his title of nobility was exchanged with his life, and there were many elements of luck involved. If the Meng family really wanted to rise from a humble family to a rich and prosperous family, they still had to rely on Meng Wenhao, the only intellectual. Father, I have enough money. Meng Wenhao could only helplessly respond to his father's doting. Then, he hesitated for a moment and took out a stack of banknotes from his inner pocket. He stammered, "Oh right, father, mother, I've exchanged all of this month's expenses into Tang Yuan." "What? What's Tang Yuan?" Meng Yuliang asked with his eyes wide open. "Father, Tang Yuan is a type of Yamachos." In order to gain his family's understanding, Meng Wenhao had to repeat what their class teacher said in class. After he finished, he looked at his father hesitantly because he was afraid that Meng Yuliang would get angry. After all, although Tang Yuan had gained the trust of the students and teachers of the academy, it was hard to say if he could gain the trust of outsiders. Father Meng did not look unhappy after hearing this. He took the 2 Tang Yuan notes from Meng Wenhao's hand and looked at them carefully for a while. Finally, he smacked his lips and said with a face full of emotion, "Marquis Yong An's idea is good. With Tang Yuan, Wenhao, it will be very convenient for you to carry money in the future. You won't have to worry about running into bad people with too many copper coins. TSK, and this Tang Yuan printing is really beautiful. The Yamacho was right, other places can really copy it." Haha. Meng Wenhao breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Mother Meng say, "Husband, Howard has exchanged copper coins for Tang Yuan. In the future, will he TSK? What do you know?" "Don't interrupt, you woman. What kind of person is the Marquis Yong'an? Why would he compete with the students? What he did will only benefit Hao and the rest. There will be no harm." Chapter 12:26. Wuyun, bring a few people with you to bring 2 carts of copper coins to the academy tomorrow and exchange them all for Tang Yuan. Do you understand? In Duke Lu's mansion, Ching Chumo, who had just finished his meal, was lying on the armchair and humming to his little attendant. Jiang Wuyun was dumbfounded. He suspected that his young master had eaten too much, so he asked uncertainly, "Ah? Young master, you want to use 2 carts of copper coins to buy Tang Yuan? How long will it take for our mansion to eat? If master and madam know, they'll." It was not Jiang Wuyun's fault for misunderstanding. It was mainly because Ching Chumo's pronunciation was too inaccurate. Ching Chumo glared and said angrily, "It's Tang Yuan, not Tang Yuan. What is going on in your head all day long?" Young master, I'm talking about Tang Yuan. What's wrong?" "IF*CK. I'm too lazy to talk to you. Here. Come and see. It's Tang Yuan. Tang Yuan. Did you see it clearly?" Ching Chumo was extremely helpless. He could only take out a few pieces of Tang Yuan, pointed at the words on them, and gnashed his teeth. "Oh, it's Tang Yuan." Jiang Wuyun suddenly realized. He scratched his head and wondered, "Young master, although the patterns on these notes are very beautiful, they're not worth 2 carts of copper coins. If master and madam know..." "Go away, don't use my parents to pressure me. Do you believe that I'll beat you up if you continue to dawdle? Besides, this money is originally my monthly expenses. I'm just using it to exchange for Tang Yuan, not for a chicken or dog fight. What can my parents do if they know? Ching Chumo was really impatient. He kicked Jiang Weiyun's butt and said angrily, Ugly bull, what are you doing? You're sneaking around and not letting me know? Tell me, I'll see if I should beat you up." At this moment, Ching Yaojin walked in with a majestic gait. His loud and clear voice shook the dust off the tiles. When Ching Chumo heard this, his face was full of black lines. What did he mean by "tell me, then see if I should beat you up"? It turns out that you're treating beating your son as your own pleasure. What? Why didn't you say anything? Go on. Tell me, what did you do? Father, I didn't do anything. Ching Yaojin sat opposite Ching Chumo and stared at Ching Chumo with a burning gaze. Ching Chumo could only say helplessly, "I just changed all the money my family gave me for this month to Tang Yuan." Tang Yuan? The one in your hand? What were they doing? Bring it over and let this old man take a look. When Ching Yaojin heard this, he did not immediately scold him. Instead, he looked at the few pieces of green paper in Ching Chumo's hand and said, "Father, Tang Yuan is a new toy that Yamacho tinkered with. It is used to replace copper coins. In the future, the Academy can only use Tang Yuan and not copper coins. Father, don't underestimate copper coins. Let me tell you, this toy." When Ching Chumo saw that his father's attitude was not bad, he was happy to tell him more about Tang Yuan. After half an hour, Ching Yaojin clicked his tongue and said, "Little Xian has thought of another good way to earn money. Ugly bull, go back and ask little Xian if his bank is short of money. If he is short of money, this old man can invest 50,000 strings of coins." Father, you. Ching Chumo's eyes widened. He suspected that he had heard wrongly. He stuttered, "Father, this bank doesn't make money. Now, the students and teachers of the academy don't need to pay extra to exchange copper coins and Tang Yuan. Why do you still need to invest so much money?" Ching Yaojin pursed his lips and said to Ching Chumo angrily, "You brat, what do you know? Not collecting extra money now doesn't mean that we won't collect extra money in the future. In this old man's opinion, little Xian's bank will definitely have great prospects in the future. Moreover, it will be a huge profit with little capital." Chongren Lane, Zhangsun Wuji's residence. I have to say, this Li Zixuan's idea is really strange. Using paper Tang Yuan to replace the heavy copper coins. This idea is bold, but it is also a wonderful idea. This old man dares to conclude that this lad must have a big plan. It is definitely not just a plot of land in Yanhuang College. Zhangsun Wuji said emotionally as he held the Tang Yuan that Zhangsun Chong brought back from the academy. "Father, do you mean that Yamacho might promote Tang Yuan to people outside the academy in the future?" Zhangsun Chong asked with uncertainty. He really didn't think about it in this direction. Zhangsun Wuji shook his head and said, It's not a possibility, but a certainty." Although Li Zixuan didn't say it clearly, this old man dares to conclude that he wants to gradually replace copper coins with Tang Yuan in the entire Tang Empire. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The younger generation will surpass us in time. When Zhang Sun Chong heard this, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said in disbelief, "Father, if that day really comes, won't Yanhuang Bank become the richest bank in Tang Empire? Not only the richest? It will also be the most profitable place in the entire Tang Empire." If Ching Yaojin could think of this, how could Zhangsun Wuji not think of it? He also predicted that Yanhuang Bank would definitely start to collect service fees when exchanging money in the future. Father, this bank can still make money? But when we were exchanging money in the afternoon, Yamacho didn't collect more from us. Zhangsun Chong subconsciously thought that Yanhuang Bank was just a product that specialized in serving the students and teachers of the academy and not for profit. That was why he was so suspicious. Even if this bank doesn't collect more from the people inside the academy, it will definitely collect more from the people outside the academy. At that time, to Li Zixuan, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he would make a fortune every day. Zhang Sun Wuji shook his head and sighed. He and Cheng Yaojin only thought of one way for the bank to make money, collecting service fees. They didn't think that Yan Wang Bank had an even more important way of making money. Haha. If that's the case, Yamacho is really a genius. Zhang Sun Chong scratched his head and laughed. Zhang Sun Wuji glanced at his son indifferently. Back then, he had sent Zhang Sun Chong to Yan Wang Academy to study mainly because he wanted Zhang Sun Chong to get close to and befriend Li Zixuan, the new favorite of the empire. He did not expect that after a few months, Zhang Sun Chong had completely forgotten his original mission and had turned into a little bootlicker. He seemed to have been subdued by Li Zixuan's profound knowledge and powerful personal charm. Thinking of this, Zhang Sun Wuji sighed helplessly. It wasn't that he was useless, but that the other party was too difficult to deal with. After a moment of silence in the study room, Zhang Sun Wuji suddenly said, after 2 days, when you return to the academy, privately ask the Duke of Yong to see if his bank is still lacking money. If it is, the Zhang Sun family can take out 100,000 strings of coins to join Yan Wang Bank. Zhang Sun Chong was immediately stunned. His father was such a proud person, but he actually took the initiative to find someone to cooperate with? Was the sun going to rise from the west? Yes, father. Chapter 12:27. Since he couldn't beat them, then he would join them. To a certain extent, Zhang Sun Wuji and Li Zixuan had the same party belief: protect the Crown Prince party. There was no need for him to deliberately fight with Li Zixuan. In the past year, Li Zixuan had used a series of methods to establish a power group with Yan Huang College as the core. That young lad who had just returned from Mount Longhu had become an existence that many people couldn't afford to offend. Since they couldn't afford to offend him, and they had a common interest, why not seek cooperation for mutual benefits? After all, no one would go against benefits. Also, Li Zixuan's workshop has been manufacturing bicycles and carriages. It should consume a lot of iron, right? Even if he has an iron mine in Hedong Road, I'm afraid he won't be able to supply it. Tell Li Zixuan that if he's willing to cooperate, I'm willing to let him mine the iron mine of the Zhang Sun family. As long as he can give us half of the iron he refines. In the study room, Zhang Sun Wuji's face revealed a sly smile. He stroked his beard and said to Zhang Sun Chong, "What was a win-win situation?" This was called a win-win situation. Currently, Li Zixuan didn't seem to lack money, but he lacked resources. Things like iron mines couldn't be bought with money. Zhang Sun Wuji giving his iron mine to Li Zixuan was exactly what Li Zixuan wanted. At the same time, the Zhang Sun family wouldn't be at a disadvantage, because with the Zhang Sun family's iron refining skills, it would take a few hundred years to refine all of their iron mine into iron. Speaking of which, why would Zhang Sun Wuji care about what happened a few hundred years later? At that time, whether the Zhang Sun family would still exist would be a problem. However, if the iron ore was given to Li Zixuan to refine, it would be completely different. With the smelting speed of the Strange Taste Pavilion's smelting speed, the amount of iron produced in 1 year would be equivalent to the Zhang Sun family's previous 4 to 5 years of production. Even if he gave half of it to Li Zixuan as remuneration, Zhang Sun Wuji would still make a huge profit. This was a method that sacrificed future resources in exchange for current wealth, and it was a win-win situation. The old fox was indeed an old fox. He was probably the only one who could come up with such a smart idea. "Father? You want to give our iron mine to Yamacho? Then wouldn't our family suffer a huge loss? Why would Zhang Sun Chong think so much?" He looked at his father in disbelief. Although he did admire Li Zixuan more personally, Zhang Sun Wuji's image in his heart had always been one who prioritized the interests of the family. Now, the old man's actions made him a little confused. Haha. Whether it was a loss or not, he would only know after trying. Chong'er, you just have to tell Li Zixuan this. Zhang Sun Wuji stroked his beard and smiled. Oh. Okay, father. Although Zhang Sun Chong was full of doubts, he still scratched his head and replied. The first time Tang Yuan met the world, he had already caused a lot of commotion. The main reason was that Tang Yuan was easy to carry around and difficult to imitate. This had attracted the attention of many people. However, most people only treated Tang Yuan as an extremely exquisite work of art. Only a very small number of people could be like Zhang Sun Wuji and see the huge business opportunity behind Tang Yuan and Yen Wang Bank. Young master, just yesterday afternoon, the bank had exchanged Tang Yuan worth more than 6,000 strings of coins for the students. This is unbelievable. On the second day, Wang Zhong came to the courtyard and told Li Zixuan excitedly. Li Zixuan had just finished his meal. He wiped his mouth with a tissue and smiled. Haha. Uncle Wang, this is only the beginning. There are still many more things that you can't believe. Oh right, the bank has so much money. Firstly, they have to pay attention to safety. If they don't have enough manpower, I will send more guards over. Secondly, they have to take out the copper coins to dry regularly to prevent them from rusting. This was the true meaning of having so much money, that it was rusty and moldy. Not only would iron rust, but copper would also rust. This was called copper rust. In ancient times, the circulation of money wasn't very frequent. Those rich families would often let their servants dry their copper coins regularly to prevent the copper coins from rusting and affecting their quality. Young master, don't worry. This old man knows all of this, Faubert said with a smile. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Since that's the case, Uncle Wang, you can go and do your work first. Faubert clasped his hands and left. He still had to go to the bank for his duty. Husband, you have worked hard for so many days. Can you finally relax now? After Faubert left, Han Yushi walked over and handed over a cup of hot water with a smile. Recently, Li Zixuan had been running around for Tang Yuan and the bank. He even worked overtime and stayed up late. Han Yushi's heart ached when she saw this. She wished she could replace him. However, there were some things that she couldn't replace, so she could only worry by the side. Haha. I'm not busy anymore. However, now that my confinement period is over, it's time for me to go out and walk around. Li Zixuan had just finished his meal, and the cup of hot water that Han Yushi brought over was just in time. He smiled as he drank the hot water. Speaking of which, today was a good day. It had been exactly 2 months since he was confined by Lier. Although he was an otaku, the feeling of not being able to go out when he clearly had something to do was really too uncomfortable for him. I almost forgot. Today is a good day for my husband to be released from confinement. My husband's memory is really good. When Han Yushi heard this, she came to a realization and then said with a hint of reluctance. In these 2 months, Li Zixuan couldn't go out, so naturally, he spent more time with her. However, she also knew that her husband was someone who did big things and couldn't be by her side forever. Therefore, her face didn't reveal the slightest bit of girlish emotions. Brother, can I go out and play? Lan wants to go out too. Lan immediately shouted after hearing the couple's conversation. She had been holding it in for the past 2 months. Although she also had a companion, Li Anren, on Yunshan, how could it be as lively as Chang'an? Haha. Okay. We'll go out in a while. We'll go to Uncle Qin's house for lunch at noon. Li Zixuan rubbed Lan's little head and said. Due to confinement, their family didn't go out to pay New Year's greetings during the New Year. One had to know that Han Yushi had just married into the Li family last year and was considered a newlywed. A newlywed's return to the family in the first year was very important. However, it was precisely because Li Zixuan was confined that Han Yushi didn't even return to the family. Although the confinement period was over, Han Tianhu had gone to Lan province, and the Han family was basically an empty house. Fortunately, Han Yushi still had a pair of adoptive parents. If she went to visit and show her filial piety, she would more or less feel some comfort in her heart. Chapter 12:28. Around 9 in the morning, 2 carriages came down from the mountain path of Cloud Mountain. The carriage in front was filled with Li Zixuan, Han Yushi, and Lan while the carriage behind was filled with gifts. After all, this trip was considered half a return trip, so it should be more grand. Strange pavilions, don't touch me, carriage drove on the cement road without any bump. It was so comfortable that Li Zixuan couldn't help but yawn. On the road, there were many farmers heading to the Chang'an market. They didn't care whether Li Zixuan could hear them or not. Once they saw Li Zixuan's personal horse carriage, they shouted, "Greetings, Marquis." This was Li Zixuan's reputation in Lantian County. Although he hadn't had the time to do anything since the entirety of Lantian County had been incorporated into his fief, this year, the villagers of Plum Village and Han Family Village had earned a lot of money because of the greenhouse vegetables. This made all the citizens of Lantian County see hope. They believed that Li Zixuan would definitely let them live a good life. Following the cement road, the horse carriage quickly arrived at Chang'an City. Wow! Isn't this the Marquis's horse carriage? I haven't seen it in a long time. Hey! It really is. How long has it been since the Marquis came to Chang'an City? It's been at least a month, right? After more than 2 months, the Li family's special carriage finally appeared in front of the people of Chang'an again. Many people whispered in the direction of the carriage. In their hearts, they always felt that without Li Zixuan, Chang'an City seemed to have missed a lot of interesting things in the past 2 months. As Li Zixuan listened to the whispers of the passers-by, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. He thought to himself, "I'm finally back." The horse carriage entered the city from Yanqing Gate and traveled west. After 15 minutes, it finally arrived at Qin Manor. Half an hour ago, Li Zixuan had sent someone to Chang'an to inform the Qin family. Therefore, the Qin family was well prepared. Both inside and outside the house were cleaned up. Red lanterns were hung up. There was a red carpet on the ground at the door. It looked quite festive. As for the bride's return to her parents' home in the first year, first of all, it was the beginning of the new year and the whole family was reunited. Naturally, it was inconvenient for her to go back to her parents' home. The 15th day of the first lunar month was also the first full moon of the year. He was afraid that his daughter-in-law would not be able to reunite with her family when she returned. Therefore, they would usually return to their parents' home on the 2nd day of the first lunar month and the 16th day of the first lunar month, so as to take care of the reunion of both parties. The 2nd and the 16th of the first lunar month had already passed, but Madame Qin still wanted to create a grand atmosphere in the manor. She wanted to give face to her adopted daughter and make her feel better. "Ha! Yushi, little Xian, you're here. Come in and have a seat." Madame Qin held Han Yushi's hand and smiled. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Auntie Qin, you and Yushi can go in first. Huayu and I will ask the servants to move all the things in the carriage inside." As for Lan the little girl felt that there were no friends to play with in the Qin family, so she went back to Yongla Lane. "Hey! You 2 children, it's fine if you're here. Why did you bring so many things?" Madame Qin said unhappily. However, although she said that, she also understood that these things were etiquette and were even more ostentatious. They had to bring them when they returned home on the new year. After chatting with Li Zixuan for a while, Madame Qin pulled Han Yushi's arm and walked into the house. "Mother, did Godfather go to the morning court?" Han Yushi supported Madame Qin and asked. "Yes. If he knew that you and little Xian were coming in the morning, he would definitely have asked for leave today. Mother, that won't do. Godfather is the pillar of the country. He naturally has to prioritize national affairs. When it was close to noon, Qin Xiong finally returned from the palace. When he saw Li Zixuan and Han Yushi coming over, he couldn't help but laugh heartily. He said that he wanted to have a few drinks with Li Zixuan at noon. His old injury had already healed last year, and his alcohol tolerance had slowly returned to its previous state. Mrs. Qin was so happy that she personally cooked a large table full of exquisite and delicious dishes. For a moment, everyone was toasting each other, and it was extremely lively. After eating and drinking, Madame Qin brought Han Yushi to the backyard. Qin Xiong took the opportunity to talk to Li Zixuan about serious matters. Little Xian, I heard that you've set up a bank in Tang Yuan. I saw Tang Yuan last night. It's really not bad and very convenient. However, during the morning court today, someone accused you of privately minting coins and flouting the national law. When he heard the second half of the sentence, Li Zixuan's face darkened. He couldn't help but ask, Uncle Qin, what happened after that? Qin Xiong shook his head and laughed. Ha! At that time, I wanted to defend you, but who would have thought that there were two people faster than me? I could only wait patiently. Who are they? Qin Xiong smiled and replied, one is your Uncle Qing, and the other is Zhao Guogong. Jijia is fine, but Zhao Guogong, I've never heard of any friendship between the two of you before. Zhao Guogong? Zhang Sun Wuji? When Li Zixuan heard that, he was even more confused than Qin Xiong. What kind of relationship did he have with Zhang Sun Wuji? If there was a relationship, it could only be a competitive relationship, right? After all, both of them were in the ironware business. But why was the old fox speaking up for him? Li Zixuan couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. In the end, he could only force himself to come up with a reason. Ahem. Uncle Qin, this might be because I saved Zhang Sun Chong during the chaos in Chang'an City last year. Moreover, Zhang Sun Chong is still my student now, right? Qin Xiong felt that this was not impossible. He nodded thoughtfully. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said with a serious face, Xiao Xian. It's fine if you only use Tang Yuan in the academy now, but I know that you have big plans. In the future, you will definitely use Tang Yuan in other places. But I hope that before you make this decision, you must seek His Majesty's approval. Not only this matter, but when you encounter other big matters in the future, you must not act on your own accord. What happened to the Cui family last time must not happen again. Li Zixuan was silent. Then, he nodded and said, Uncle Qin, don't worry. As the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. In the future, I will definitely do things more seriously. Qin Xiong was satisfied and assured. He nodded, and a smile finally appeared on his serious face. That's good. That's good. Ha! Recently, thanks to you, little Xian, the vegetables on the Qin family's farmstead have matured. Although the farmsteads don't earn as much as your farmsteads, they still earn quite a bit. It's enough for everyone to work hard for several years. The farmsteads of the Qin, Qing, Niu, and Yuqi families started planting greenhouse vegetables half a month later than Li Zixuan's farmsteads. It just so happened that it was harvest season recently. Although the price of greenhouse vegetables in Chang'an City was not as expensive as before, it was definitely not cheap either. The farmsteads of these four families could still make a profit. Ha! Uncle Qin, you're too serious. What does this have to do with luck? The money that the farmers earn is all earned with their own hands. It has nothing to do with this nephew. Chapter 12:29. Xiao Xian, is your bank still short of money? Although my Qin family isn't a wealthy family, if you urgently need money, I can still raise some. Qin Manor, Main Hall. After talking about the farmers, Qin Xiong talked about the bank. Li Zixuan was silent for a moment and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, Uncle Qin, but the bank is only running in the academy now, so I'm not short of money. When I'm short of money in the future, I'll be thick-skinned and ask Uncle Qin." In terms of family background, the Qin family was actually poorer than the Qing family. After all, because they owned shares in the winery, the Qing family's monthly dividends were comparable to the total income of the previous year. Qin Xiong had always been good to him, and he was Han Yushi's adoptive father. In the past, he might have neglected Qin Xiong when he had a business to make a fortune, but with the bank now, if there was a chance in the future, he had to bring the Qin family along. Qin Xiong glared and said, "What are you talking about, kid? The Qin family's things will not only belong to Huayu in the future, but also to you. I've always treated you as half a son. If you need anything from the Qin family, just ask. There's nothing to be thick-skinned about." These words were said sincerely. To Qin Xiong, Li Zixuan was not only his savior, but also half a son-in-law. Many times, Qin Xiong treated Li Zixuan as his own son. Some treatment, even Qin Huayu couldn't compare to. Li Zixuan was touched and said, "Uncle Qin, I appreciate your kindness. If I need anything in the future, I'll definitely not be polite to you." After having lunch at Qin Manor, Han Yushi returned to Yongla Lane to wait. Li Zixuan, on the other hand, went to Qing Yaojin, Niu Jinda, Yuqi Jingda, Li Jing, Yen Lide, and Li Daozong's families. He sat for a while in each family. After all, it was not easy for him to get out of prison. Moreover, this could also tell others that he, Li Zixuan, had returned from Cloud Mountain. After they finished shopping, the sky was already dark, and it was obviously too late to return to Cloud Mountain. In an era without street lights, it was not so easy to walk at night. Thus, the couple and Lan spent the night in the Yongla Lane residence. The next morning, the three of them set off for Cloud Mountain. "Wife, Lan, you two go back first. I still have some things to do." At the foot of the Cloud Mountain, Li Zixuan jumped off the carriage and said to Han Yushi and Lan who were in the carriage, "Husband, where are you going?" Han Yushi lifted the curtain and asked, "Haha. I will make a trip to Lantian County's Yamen and return before noon." Li Zixuan smiled and urged the two of them to hurry up the mountain. Now that they were in the territory of Cloud Mountain, he was no longer worried about Han Yushi and Lan safety. That was why he could leave with peace of mind. After watching the carriage climb up the mountain path, Li Zixuan turned around and walked towards Lantian County in the north. It was already early spring, and there were traces of green on the road. Compared to the withering of all things in winter, early spring undoubtedly brought more hope and vitality to people. Along the way, Li Zixuan enjoyed the beautiful scenery of early spring. When he met the villagers who greeted him, he smiled and nodded. After about 45 minutes, he finally arrived at the foot of Lantian County. The green city wall was not tall, but from afar it looked quite imposing. 2 guards stood at the city gate, inspecting the pedestrians entering and leaving the city. With Chang and city next to it, there were very few pedestrians entering and exiting Lantian County. For those who were doing business or wanted to enter the city to buy things, Chang and city was definitely their first choice. Anyway, Chang and city was not very far for them, so they might as well take a few more steps and go to Chang and city to sell things for a higher price or to have better choices. In any era, a super city had a huge siphon effect on the surrounding counties. Chang and city in the Tang Dynasty was no exception. As such, Lantian County's position was a little awkward. Because of its natural geographical disadvantage, in terms of development prospects, it was almost impossible to get close to Chang and city. At most, it could only follow behind Chang and city and eat soy sauce or drink soup. Therefore, the county magistrate of Lantian County did not ask for no merit, but to not make any mistakes. It was because the structure of Lantian County was set, and it was difficult for there to be any big development. After asking a passerby, Li Zishuan knew the direction of the county office and walked towards it. Don't run. Stop. Your father sold you to this young master. Are you still thinking of running? Quick, quick, catch her for me. Suddenly, there was a rush of footsteps and an arrogant man's voice behind him. Aya, isn't this the son of old Master Fan from the east of the city? Why is he here? Let's go, let's go. Sigh. I don't know whose family's daughter is going to suffer this time. I heard it's Wu Laosan's daughter. Sigh, this Wu Laosan lost dozens of strings of coins at the Fan family's gambling den. How can he afford to pay it back? He probably sold his own daughter. Sigh. What a pity. The Fan family. Let's go, let's go. Don't meet young Master Fan later. Humph. In my opinion, the good days of the Fan family's father and son are coming to an end. Now that Lantian County has become the fief of the Marquis of Yong'an, everyone knows that the Marquis of Yong'an treats the people of his fief very well. When the time comes, will the Fan family continue to do whatever they want? But why hasn't the Marquis of Yong'an come to Lantian County after so long? Let's not count on it. Listening to the whispers of the passers-by, Li Zishuan shook his head. He had watched many melodramatic dramas in his previous life, but he did not expect such a melodramatic plot to fall on his head. It seemed that the sky of Lantian County was not so clear. Bam! Suddenly, a woman's scream came from behind him. Li Zishuan turned around and saw a woman in coarse hemp clothes, who had fallen to the ground. Behind the woman was a slightly plump youth with a mole at the corner of his mouth, who was leading a group of strong men towards them. Ha ha! Let a wretched girl like you run? Are you still going to run now? Men, tie her up and bring her back. The slightly plump youth did not continue to run. He pointed at the woman who had fallen to the ground and laughed arrogantly. Yes, young master. The group of people roared in agreement and surrounded the woman. No, no. Young Master Fan, the money my father owes you, I will definitely pay it back for him. Don't catch me. The woman wanted to get up from the ground, but perhaps because she had fallen too hard, before she could get up, she was lifted up from the ground by the group of people behind her. Her face was full of tears, and as she struggled, she complained bitterly to the slightly plump youth behind her. You still want it? What are you going to use to pay it back? 30 strings of coins, even if you don't calculate the interest, you won't be able to pay it back in your lifetime. Why don't you follow me back and pay with your body, haha. Chapter 12:30. No. No. Save me. Save me. On the streets of the county town of Lantian County, the young girl's face was immediately filled with horror when she heard the young man say the words "pay with my body." She struggled desperately with tears in her eyes. Ha ha! Save me? Look at what this is. The chubby young man took out a piece of paper from his sleeve and laughed coldly. This is a slave contract. Now that you're my maid, instead of serving me properly, you want to run away from home. Do you believe that I'll send you to the authorities for punishment? In ancient times, the lowest status was a slave. This young girl was sold to the young man with the surname Fan. According to the Tang Dynasty's laws, she could not run away as she pleased. Under such circumstances, the young man with the surname Fan would definitely win the case even if it was brought to the authorities. Furthermore, the young girl might even be tortured in court. Slaves, those who had no thoughts and only knew how to serve their masters wholeheartedly were called slaves. Their lives were in the hands of their masters, not to mention running away from home. Now, that slave contract had completely pushed the young girl to the bottom of the abyss. No. I didn't sign this. I didn't draw it. The young girl's tears fell like rain as she desperately tried to resist. However, how could her little bit of strength be a match for the group of burly men around her? Even if she tried her best, she would not be able to cause them any trouble. Bah! Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and follow me back. The chubby young man waved his hand and said impatiently. After that, he turned around and wanted to bring the little beauty home to enjoy, but who knew? Hey! Where did this poor scholar come from? Get lost. Don't block my way. In the middle of the road stood a young man who looked like a scholar. Although his light blue clothes were not luxurious, they were clean and tidy. Compared to the luxuriously dressed young man, he had an even more extraordinary temperament. Fan Jianxiang, don't you know whose territory Lantian County is now? How dare you kidnap a girl here? Aren't you afraid that Marquis will punish your Fan family? The blue-robed scholar said coldly to the chubby young man without fear. Fan Jianxiang? Strong and strong? When Li Zixuan heard the name of the chubby young man, he almost burst out laughing. As for the scholar who was blocking the road, he also recognized her. She was Yu Dehang from the Yu clan, whom he had met a few times before. However, because he was quite far away from Fan Jianxiang, Fan Jianxiang and the others, and there were many people in between them, although he could see Yu Dehang through the gaps in the crowd, Yu Dehang did not notice him. At this time, a manservant beside Fan Jianxiang came to his ear and whispered a few words. Fan Jianxiang laughed and said, I was wondering who it was. So it was elementary scholar Yu, from the Yu family manor. You're asking me whose territory this Lantian County is? Haha, no matter whose territory it is fine as long as it is not yours. You, elementary scholar Yu, should go home and study hard. Wait until you've truly become an elementary scholar before you meddle in other people's business, right? You! The reason why Yu Dehang was called elementary scholar Yu by the villagers was because he had not been able to obtain the title of elementary scholar despite having taken the exam many times. However, he was indeed very knowledgeable, so the villagers called him that. Now that Fan Jianxiang had used this nickname to ridicule him, Yu Dehang immediately became angry. Fan Jianxiang, don't go too far. Let go of this girl, or I will go to the county yamen to sound the drum and complain about the crime of forcibly kidnapping a civilian girl. Hee. Go ahead and sue. Go ahead and sue. I'll tell you the truth, even if the heavenly emperor comes today, don't expect me to let her go. Come, chase this sour scholar away with a stick. Don't hinder me from doing my business. Fan Jianxiang put one hand on his waist and waved the slave contract with the other. He had the feeling that, with the slave contract in hand, the world is mine. He laughed loudly and said without fear, Ha! Young Master Fan, you remind me of someone who used to be as arrogant as you. Do you know how he is now? Just as Fan Jianxiang's two guards were brandishing their sticks and walking towards Yu Dehang, a faint but clear voice suddenly came from the street. When Yu Dehang heard this voice, his expression changed slightly. He was about to say something, but after thinking for a while, he decided not to say anything. What happened to him after that? Fan Jianxiang did not know why, but he followed the voice and asked this question. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and Fan Jianxiang could not help but squint his eyes. When he opened them again, there was suddenly another person in front of him. It was a handsome young man with a strong aura. After that, he ate celery for half a year, and his breath finally became fresh. The young man looked at Fan Jianxiang with a serious face. Fan Jianxiang. Yu Dehang was stunned for a moment, and finally could not help but laugh out loud. The more he laughed, the more he wanted to laugh. In the end, he laughed so hard that he could not even straighten his back. The girl who was caught by the Fan family guards, who had been crying a moment ago, could not help but want to laugh. Even when she thought about how she was in prison, she still wanted to laugh. In the end, she could not hold it in. With a sound, her tears turned into laughter. Her laughter was called a weeping beauty. You bastard! Humph! The sun really rose from the west today. Here comes another ignorant person who dares to make fun of this young master. Men, beat him. Beat him hard. Don't beat him to death. Beat him until he's seriously injured, then bring him back for treatment. After he's healed, then beat him again. I want him to suffer a fate worse than death. Fan Jianxiang came back to his senses and realized that he had been humiliated by Li Zixuan. His face turned green and white, and then he pointed at Li Zixuan and gnashed his teeth. Yes, young master. All the guards that Fan Jianxiang brought with him suddenly rushed towards Li Zixuan fiercely. Hey! Stop! Yu Dehang was just about to shout, stop, when he saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have made a hand gesture to him, indicating that he should not make a sound. He could only obediently shut his mouth. Facing the Fan family guards who were rushing towards him like hungry wolves, Li Zixuan suddenly disappeared from where he was. Following that, Yu Dehang and the rest only saw a blur in front of their eyes. Then, the Fan family guards fell to the ground with their faces paralyzed. They were either rubbing their arms, legs, or stomach. A wave of wails filled the air. It could not be helped. These people's fighting abilities were on a completely different level compared to Li Zixuan's. It was too easy to deal with them. Seeing this, Fan Jianxiang realized that Li Zixuan and the other 4 martial arts experts. He widened his eyes in shock and anger. Pointing at Li Zixuan, he said in horror, You don't come any closer. My father is Fan Tong. Stop right there. You dare to hurt people on the street? Believe it or not, my father will send people to arrest you. Chapter 12:31. Fan Tong? Li Zixuan paused for a moment, then laughed. Your father may have a good name, but I don't have any rice here. Why would a rice bucket like him want to catch me? Fan Jianxiang was furious. His father's name had been mocked before, but ever since his father became famous in Lantian County, no one dared to make fun of this joke. When he heard Li Zixuan's mocking words, he was so angry that his face turned purple. You little bastard, you're done for. Smack! Ouch! As soon as Fan Jianxiang cursed, he felt as if his face had been ruthlessly slapped by a piece of metal. At that moment, he even felt that his face was no longer his own. Following that, his entire body flew out and landed heavily on the ground. Silence. The entire street was silent. Previously, when Li Zixuan had attacked the Fan family's guards, it had attracted the attention of a few brave passers-by. Now that they saw Li Zixuan directly teach Fan Jianxiang a lesson, the passers-by all sucked in a breath of cold air. While they were secretly delighted, they were also surprised at who this young man was. Hiss! Old Master Fan's son was beaten up? Who is this? He looks unfamiliar. Maybe he's from another county? There were many people who knew Li Zixuan, but there were even more who didn't know him. Oh my God! Isn't that the Duke of Yong'an? Why is he in Lantian County? Duke of Yong'an? Are you sure? Gulp. I'm sure. It's really the Duke of Yong'an. I saw him in Chang'an last year. That's great. The Duke of Yong'an is in Lantian County. Let's see how the Fan father and son can still be so arrogant. The onlookers were shocked at first, but when someone recognized Li Zixuan's identity, everyone cheered. When Li Zixuan had beaten up Fan Jianxiang, the young girl who had been caught by the Fan family guards had been so shocked that she had forgotten to run away. She stood there in a daze. Now that she heard the crowd mention Li Zixuan's identity, her eyes suddenly glowed with vitality. I don't like people with foul mouths, so I suggest you eat more celery in the future. That way your breath will be fresher. Li Zixuan slowly walked over and looked at Fan Jianxiang, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. You are Marquis Yong'an? Fan Jianxiang's face was swollen. After such a fall, he could no longer get up from the ground. Hearing the discussions of the surrounding commoners, Fan Jianxiang's face was filled with horror. Clearly, He had heard the words Marquis of Yong, and from his father or others before. What? Didn't you just say that even if the Heavenly Emperor came, he wouldn't let her go? Now that I'm asking you to release him, are you going to release him or not? Li Zixuan squatted down and looked at Fan Jianxiang's swollen face as he asked calmly. Marquis, I have her indenture contract here. She is now mine. Fan Jianxiang raised his head and looked at the girl standing not far away as he said unwillingly, swoosh. Immediately after, Fan Jianxiang felt a gust of wind blow past his ear. Then, the indenture contract in his hand was already in Li Zixuan's hands. Indenture contract? Where is it? Li Zixuan's hand shook slightly, and that indenture contract instantly turned into pieces of paper. Then, it drifted along with the cold wind and landed on the street. You, Marquis Yong, and you destroyed the evidence without permission. You are unreasonable. Fan Jianxiang's eyes widened as he roared furiously. Ha! I forgot to tell you. This marquis is a marquis personally conferred by the Emperor. Lantian County is a fief that the Emperor personally bestowed to this marquis. This is my territory, and I have the final say here. Li Zixuan smiled faintly. He was the true king of Lantian County. Here, as long as he didn't do anything treacherous like rebelling, he could always enjoy the highest treatment. Everyone had to listen to him. Whatever he said, it was what it was. For a small case like Fan Jianxiang's kidnapping of a civilian girl, even if he didn't have any evidence, no one would do anything to him. At most, they would just scold him in private. Who asked the entire Lantian County to be his fief? There were ways to deal with cultured people. To deal with a bully like Fan Jianxiang, there was a need to use more overbearing methods to deal with him. One had to let the bully experience the feelings of those who were bullied by them. Fan Jianxiang was feeling aggrieved. He used to be able to do whatever he wanted in Lantian County, but now, he had fallen to the point where he was bullied. He wanted to reason with others, but the other party wouldn't reason with him. At this moment, he finally tasted the feeling of being bullied. Bang, bang, bang. Just then, a flurry of footsteps suddenly came from the street. Then, a person shouted loudly, "Who dares to fight on the street in broad daylight? Stop right now. Otherwise, all of you will be taken back to the county yamen for questioning." As soon as the voice fell, a group of people surrounded Li Zixuan and the others. Looking at their uniforms, they were the yamen runners of Lantian County. "Young Master Fan, are you all right?" The head constable saw Fan Jianxiang lying on the ground with swollen cheeks and hurriedly ran over. He asked with concern. Constable Zhao, I'm fine." Fan Jianxiang's face didn't show any joy because of the arrival of reinforcements. Instead, there was a trace of panic. He said to Constable Zhao with an unnatural expression. "Impudent! Which unruly commoner dares to hurt people on the streets of Lantian County? Men, take him back to the county yamen for this constable." Constable Zhao thought that Fan Jianxiang was afraid of Li Zixuan's martial prowess and didn't dare to speak. He suddenly stood up and pointed at Li Zixuan as he spoke sternly. However, he quickly noticed the abnormality in his surroundings. Not only were the commoners on the street not afraid of him, but they were looking at him as if he was an idiot. This made him a little confused. "Heh, all right. Come, Constable Zhao, quickly take me back to the county yamen. I just happened to have some things to discuss with County Magistrate He." Li Zixuan looked at Constable Zhao and said with a smile. However, no one noticed that a cold light flashed in the corner of his eyes. At least you know what's good for you. Men, take him back." Constable Zhao thought for a long time but couldn't come up with a reason. The main reason was that he didn't recognize Li Zixuan and thought that he was from another county and probably didn't have any background. Thus, he gritted his teeth and waved at the surrounding yamen runners. "Hey, wait. Constable Zhao, since it's a fight, you can't just arrest me, right? In order to avoid criticism, you have to bring young Master Fan back to the county yamen as a witness. Li Zishuan smiled and said. The main reason was that he was worried that Fan Jianxiang would secretly escape. Oh, you have a point. Men, take young Master Fan back to the county yamen. One was to arrest, the other was to invite. The difference in treatment was obvious. Chapter 1232. Under the lead of Lantian County's Constable Zhao, Li Zishuan and Fan Jianxiang were escorted to the county yamen. The onlookers, Yu Dehang, and the girl who was rescued from the Zhao family's guards all followed behind Constable Zhao without a word. However, the way they looked at Constable Zhao was filled with hatred and a trace of sympathy. Yes, it was sympathy. Obviously, they had already predicted Constable Zhao's tragic fate. Sir, I was patrolling the streets today and discovered bandits assaulting people on the street. I've brought them back to the county yamen. Please open the court for questioning. At the back of the Lantian County Yamen, Constable Zhao hurriedly ran over and saluted County Magistrate He, who was reading in the corridor. Oh? Who's so bold? Oh right, was anyone injured? County Magistrate He raised his head and asked in surprise. Sir, the identity of the bandit is unknown, but Master Fan's eldest son was seriously injured. Constable Zhao replied. Fan Jianxiang? It's him? County Magistrate He raised his eyebrows and looked at Constable Zhao meaningfully. He then waved his hand and said, Please wait for a moment. I'll change my clothes and go to the court now. Yes, sir. Half an hour later, County Magistrate He, dressed in his official robes, brought Constable Zhao to the county yamen's court. When he saw the people in the court, County Magistrate He almost wet his pants. Ho! Ho! County Magistrate He hurriedly walked over and bowed to Li Zishuan, but someone was faster than him. How dare you? You're in the court and you're not bowing to the County Magistrate? Constable Zhao took a step forward and shouted at Li Zishuan. County Magistrate He was a civil official, but at this moment, he couldn't help but curse. What was a pig teammate? This was the perfect example of a pig-like teammate. Slap! County Magistrate He knew that he couldn't let Constable Zhao fool around anymore. He immediately walked over and gave Constable Zhao a hard slap. He then ordered the yamen runners in the court, Guards, seize Zhao Qiuhu for me. The bailiffs were all stunned. They thought that County Magistrate He had said something wrong. They all looked at County Magistrate He in disbelief. What are you waiting for? Capture Zhao and Qiuhu. When County Magistrate He saw that there was no movement around, he immediately raised his voice and roared. Yes, my lord. It was only then that the yamen runners came to their senses and hurriedly went forward to grab Constable Zhao. My lord, why did you capture me? Constable Zhao finally recovered from his shock and shouted unwillingly. County Magistrate He ignored him and went straight to Li Zishuan. He bowed and said, Greetings, Marquis. Marquis? Constable Zhao widened his eyes in horror and said in disbelief, You are the Marquis of Yong'an. Li Zishuan smiled faintly and said meaningfully, County Magistrate He, before this Marquis came, I thought that everyone in Lantian County could live and work in peace and contentment. I didn't expect that in broad daylight, I would meet a prodigal son who forcefully snatched a woman. There was even a county constable who liked to cover up and curry favor with others. This is really an eye-opener for this Marquis. Tell me, is there any law in this Lantian County? Is the sky of this Lantian County black or blue? At the end of his speech, Li Zishuan's voice suddenly became louder. The entire court was filled with his deafening roar. County Magistrate He's face was deathly pale. He trembled as he bowed and said, This Marquis has not governed properly and caused the people to suffer. Evil people and officials run amok. This Marquis is guilty. Please punish me, Marquis. Constable Zhao's face was ashen. It was obvious that he no longer had any hope. Li Zixuan shook his head and took 2 steps forward. He came to the front of the court and sat in the seat that originally belonged to County Magistrate He. He slammed the gavel and shouted angrily, "This Marquis originally trusted you and planned to entrust you with important tasks in the future. But this is how you repay this Marquis? The current emperor is diligent in governance and loves the people, but you do nothing and allow your subordinates to join forces with the tyrants to oppress the people and run amok. What qualifications do you have to be the parent official of tens of thousands of people?" To be honest, Li Zixuan had always had a good impression of County Magistrate He. In his eyes, County Magistrate He was a capable person. He could feel it from their previous interactions. But he didn't expect County Magistrate He to be so inactive in governance. From the discussions of the people, it was obvious that the Fan father and son had been doing evil in Lantian County for a long time. But now they were still at large and had not received any punishment. Such a mediocre official, no matter how capable he was, Li Zixuan wouldn't appoint him. This was because he knew better than anyone that his foundation was the tens of thousands of people of Lantian County, not some official. This Marquis is guilty. This Marquis is ashamed to face Marquis. Ashamed to face the Emperor. Ashamed to face the tens of thousands of people of Lantian County. County Magistrate He cupped his hands sorrowfully. Marquis, County Magistrate He is a good official. Please don't blame him. Last year, County Magistrate He donated several months of his salary to the charity. That's right, Marquis. Not only did County Magistrate He not impose additional taxes, he even built schools for the county and let our children go to school for free. That's right, Marquis. County Magistrate He is a good official. Please don't blame him. Just as Li Zixuan was about to condemn County Magistrate He, the group of people who came with him suddenly shouted out. Li Zixuan's heart was suddenly at a loss. Things didn't seem to be exactly as he thought. Marquis, ever since County Magistrate He took office, he has always been considerate of the people. Although he has made mistakes in some matters, he is definitely a good official. I beg Marquis to judge clearly. Yu Dehang shouted from outside the government office. Li Zixuan believed 70 to 80% in his heart. He thought that there might be more to the Fan father and son's matter. So he looked at County Magistrate He and said, "Seeing that you have done good for the people, I will forgive you this time. If there is a next time, you will be punished." County Magistrate He bowed and cupped his hands, saying, "Thank you, Marquis. I am ashamed." Li Zixuan then ordered the bailiffs in the hall. Fan Jianxiang instigated the servants and induced the people to participate in gambling. Today, he wanted to kidnap a woman. Men, lock him in the prison and choose a day to interrogate him. Yes, Marquis. The bailiffs had previously stood on the wrong side on the street. Now that they had a rare opportunity to perform, they all hurriedly responded loudly. "The rest of you, quickly disperse." Li Zixuan waved his hand to the people outside the government office and then said to County Magistrate He, "County Magistrate He, follow me to the back of the government office." County Magistrate He cupped his hands and said, "Yes." After that, the two of them went to the back of the government office one after the other. Chapter 1233. Speak. What is the background of the Fan father and son? Why are you being so timid? In the back office, Li Zixuan put his hands behind his back and asked in a low voice. As smart as he was, how could he not see the anger and hesitation in County Magistrate He's eyes when he looked at Fan Jianxiang? It was because of this that he asked this question. County Magistrate He's face froze for a moment before he smiled bitterly. "Marquis, this Fan family started their business 4 years ago. In Lantian County, it can be said that they have deep root. Their family owns thousands of acres of land, and they have dozens of shops in the city. They are involved in silk, clothing, jade, restaurants, gambling houses, and other businesses. They have thousands of tenants and hundreds of servants. They can be said to be the most powerful family in Lantian County. Not to mention other things, the Fan family pays thousands of strings of coins in taxes every year. It is because of this that I usually turn a blind eye to Fan Jianxiang, as long as he doesn't do things that are too out of line. When I took up my post in Lantian County last year, I also wanted to take down the Fan father and son, who are full of evil. However, if the government took action against the Fan family, Lantian County would collect thousands of strings of coins less in taxes every year. In order to complete the Ministry of Appointments and Ministry of Revenue's assessment, I could only impose this tax on the people. I didn't want to do it, so I could only hold back my desire to deal with the Fan father and son. I wanted to wait until the people of Lantian County were better off and all the children were in school before I took action against them. I didn't expect Fan Jianxiang to be so daring as to offend Marquis. I am guilty of covering up for a tyrant. County Magistrate, he bowed deeply to Li Zishuan and did not get up. His face was full of guilt. Get up! Li Zishuan was silent for a moment and said, since there is a reason for this, and you are wholeheartedly concerned about the people, how can I blame you? Although it is pardonable, I don't agree with your way of doing things. Lantian County's conditions are not good and taxes are hard to collect. But indulging a tyrant is like drinking poison to quench thirst. It hurts the people's hearts. No matter what, I don't want you to do such things in the future. County Magistrate, he cupped his hands and said with a gloomy face, Marquis is right. I was foolish. It was never too late to mend the pen after the sheep had been lost. From now on, all you have to do is to protect the people and live up to your title as the County Magistrate. As for the tax revenue of Lantian County, you don't have to worry about it. With this Marquis around, the county's treasury will definitely have more than enough every year, and the people will gradually become richer. The government is still the government, relying on the tyrants in the city to maintain the government's operations. Can such a government be called a government? Might as well call them the lackeys of the rich. Immediately send someone to investigate the illegal activities of the Fan father and son over the years. After the investigation is done, hold a public trial. At that time, all the people in the county are allowed to watch. In the past, Lantian County still needed to complete the tax tasks given by the imperial court, but now there was no need at all. This was because Lantian County had now become Li Zishuan's private territory. The land, official appointments, and financial authority were all under Li Zishuan's control. The taxes that were previously handed over to the imperial court would now be handed over to Li Zishuan. To a certain extent, the current Li Zishuan was no different from the feudal lords of the previous dynasties, just that the land was a little smaller. With Li Zishuan's support, Magistrate He's back straightened, and his previous misgivings were no longer present. He excitedly saluted and replied, Yes, Marquis. This official will have someone investigate the Fan family thoroughly. Sir. Not good. Not good. Lord Fan has brought many of the Fan family's guards to the front office and is making a scene in the front yard. They want us to release Fan Jianxiang immediately. At this moment, a yamen runner hurriedly ran over, shouting as he ran. Impudent! Magistrate He's expression changed. The court was a solemn place, and Fan Tong had come to cause a scene. This was a slap to his face, especially when Li Zishuan was watching from the side. This made County Magistrate He's expression turn even uglier. Jing Fan, quickly inform all the yamen runners on duty to gather in the front yard. Those who are not there on time will no longer have to work as a government official. Today, I will capture all of these villains who dare to cause trouble in the county office. Yes, sir. The Yamen runner saw Magistrate He's unyielding attitude and felt his blood boil. He used his loudest voice to reply. Marquis, it's all my fault for indulging Fan Tong and his people too much. That's why they dare to act so impudently. I will do my best to make up for my past mistakes. After the Yamen runner left, Magistrate He saluted Li Zixuan with a face full of shame. Ha! It's great that you can correct your mistakes. I'll go with you to meet Fan Tong, Li Zixuan said with a smile. Speaking of Fan Tong felt an inexplicable urge to laugh at the mention of his name. Who was the person who named Fan Tong back then? My son has always been a good boy. Why did you put him in prison for no reason? Where's Constable Zhao? Tell him to come out. I'd like to ask him if he has the guts to arrest people for no reason. And where's Magistrate He? In the past, the Fan family has always been the most active when the county office collects taxes. What Magistrate He did today will disappoint all the aristocrats of Lantian County. In the front yard of the county office, a fat, well-dressed middle-aged man was holding his big belly and scolding the Yamen runners in the yard. It was as if he was the official and the runners were the commoners. It was clear that Magistrate He was very kind to the aristocrats of the county. Lord Fan, your son kidnapped a commoner in broad daylight. Do you think I can't arrest him? You, on the other hand, brought people to the county office in broad daylight. What are you trying to do? Do you have any respect for the law? Do you have me? Do you have His Majesty? While Fan Tong was in the middle of his rant, Magistrate He walked out of the courtroom. At the same time, two teams of Yamen runners ran out from both sides of the courtroom and surrounded Fan Tong and his guards and servants. The atmosphere in the courtroom suddenly became tense. Fan Tong was stunned at first. Clearly, he did not expect Magistrate He to be so decisive today. Then he said angrily, "Kidnapped a commoner? Gathered at the county office? You're just trying to accuse me. The person my son arrested today was only a servant girl who escaped from the Fan family. As for me, I'm here today to seek justice for my son. How is this defying the law?" Humph! What a bunch of nonsense. I've already asked around. The girl's identity is clean. When did she become a servant girl of the Fan family? Magistrate He said coldly. Fan Tong rebuked, "Impossible. That girl must be lying. My son has her indenture." Ha! Indenture? Fan Tong, go in and ask your son if he can produce the indenture. Guards, Fan Tong has offended the county office and is defying the law. Take him to jail and interrogate him another day. Li Zixuan, who was standing behind Magistrate He, did not want to waste any more time. He walked out and gave his orders. Yes, Marquis. Chapter 1234. Marquis? You are the Marquis of Yong'an? Fan Tong looked at Li Zixuan in surprise. Li Zixuan did not want to talk to him, mainly because the old man's image was too unsightly. He waved his hand and said, "Take him away." Yes. Which of the Yamen runners did not know Li Zixuan? Who would dare to disobey Li Zixuan? Just now, Constable Zhao was a living example. Therefore, as soon as Li Zixuan finished speaking, the Yamen runners rushed towards Fan Tong. "Marquis, I am innocent. I was just in a moment of desperation, but I did not mean to offend the Yamen. I beg you, Marquis. The Fan family has contributed a lot to Lantian County over the years. The guards of the Fan family had wanted to resist, but now that all the Yamen runners had arrived and Li Zixuan was rumored to be a powerful martial artist, they were quickly subdued by the runners. Fan Tong, on the other hand, was being dragged away by two Yamen runners, but he was still unwilling to give up and yelled at the top of his lungs. "County Magistrate He, you have to hurry up with collecting evidence of the Fan family's crimes. I can only give you 2 days. After 2 days, the public trial must be held as scheduled. This matter may change if we delay." Li Zixuan said solemnly to county magistrate he after calming down the commotion in the yamen. He was the most powerful person in Lantian County, and his words were law, but that did not mean he could do whatever he wanted. For example, although Li Er held the highest position in the Tang Empire, he still had to listen to the opinions of his officials, and did things within the rules. The Fan family's case had to be tried and convicted as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the other wealthy families and gentry in the city did not know the truth and joined forces to cause trouble, then County Magistrate He and Li Zixuan would be in a difficult position. I understand. This time I will not let you down, Marquis. County Magistrate He clasped his fist. Li Zixuan thought for a moment, then said, as for the Fan family's dozens of shops, close them down if there are any problems, especially the gambling houses. They are simply harming the people. You don't have to worry about closing down so many shops. In the near future, I will use the Chamber of Commerce to do business in Lantian County. In the future, Lantian County may not be as big as Chang'an, but it must become the largest commercial county east of Chang'an. When that time comes, taxes and whatnot will naturally not be low. Attracting investment and developing business were his main goals for coming to Lantian County today. Dealing with the Fan father and son was just a coincidence, and it was just a casual move. Hearing this, County Magistrate He was overjoyed. After all, this was a real benefit for Lantian County. Marquis is wise. The Lantian County will finally have a good life. In addition, I plan to build a mansion in the city, as well as a dam at the Ba River in Plum Village. I will need a large number of craftsmen and laborers. When the time comes, I will prioritize hiring from Lantian County. The wages will definitely be generous, and when the time comes, I will be able to provide subsidies to many of the people. These were the two major projects that Li Zixuan was about to start. The dam was the most important, and although the mansion was secondary, it would still provide many employment opportunities for the people in the city. Marquis is benevolent and righteous. I will definitely send people to the various villages to mobilize them. County Magistrate He replied with a smile. Previously, he had been worried about the people's livelihood, businesses, and taxes. But now Li Zixuan had solved all of them with just a few words. A huge rock in his heart had finally been lifted. The news of the Fan father and son being locked up in the county jail was spread by someone. In the evening, almost all the people in and out of the city knew about it. For a while, the people were discussing and celebrating in private. Many of the people who had been bullied by the Fan family before were running around to tell each other. Some even set off the leftover firecrackers from the new year. The entire county began to be immersed in a sea of joy. As for the rich, at this moment they were a little uneasy, especially those who were close to the Fan family. Now, they were beginning to worry that Li Zixuan would one day be ruthless to them. However, these people now, other than secretly worrying, it seemed that there was nothing they could do, unless they completely moved out of Lantian County. But these people had big families and businesses, and their roots here. How could they move out in a short period of time? Besides, Li Zixuan had not caught them yet. If they directly escaped, wouldn't that be admitting to it? The next day. Yanhuang College Calendar, Monday. The students, who had rested for 2 days, finally returned to the college. But this time, they did not have to carry a big bag of copper coins as living expenses for a week at the college, because now they all had Tang Yuan. Many students who lived in Chang'an took advantage of the weekend to send people to the college with a lot of copper coins to exchange for Tang Yuan. For example, Ching Chumo now had more than 100 Tang Yuan, which was enough for him to live in the college for a long time. Another example was Li Tai, who was even more ruthless. He sent people to exchange more than 1,000 Tang Yuan over the weekend. Even if he could eat, it was enough for him to live in the college for a year. It was worth mentioning that Chitsu Pavilion, Zuatian Restaurant, and Chitsu Culture were all owned by Li Zixuan. Now that they could also exchange Tang Yuan, it caused quite a stir in Chang'an. After all, the things in Li Zishuan's shops were not cheap. How inconvenient would it be to use an ox cart to carry money every time you wanted to buy something? After seeing Tang Yuan, many people secretly planned to find time to go to Yunshan to exchange a batch of Tang Yuan. Hey! Wenhao, wait! What is this thing? Before class, in the classroom of Class 1, Ching Chumo saw Meng Wenhao put a square, thick, black object on the table. He was curious and quickly asked, "Oh, Brother Chon Yo, you're talking about this?" Meng Wenhao's face showed a bit of shyness. He said embarrassedly, "This is a small money bag that my mother sewed for me to store Tang Yuan in. My mother was afraid that the Tang Yuan would be too old from folding and folding, so she sewed this money bag with a double layer." If Li Zishuan was here, he would definitely shout, "Damn, isn't this a wallet?" Although Ching Chumo had never seen a modern wallet, Meng Wenhao's special money bag still attracted his attention. He took the money bag from Meng Wenhao's hand and looked at it carefully. "Hey! This thing looks good. I'll ask my mother to make one for me later." "Wenhao, your mother is really amazing. She can even think of such a method." When Li Tai heard this, he also came over with great interest. After understanding the use of the money bag, he said excitedly, "Haha! Not bad, not bad. This thing is more suitable for storing Tang Yuan than the previous money bags. I'll ask someone to make a few later." In the little fatty's opinion, this money bag could not only store money, but also be used to show off. Chapter 1235. Without Li Zishuan's secret promotion, the wallet, a product of modern society, had appeared in Tang Dynasty. It was only because the wallet was more suitable for storing Tang Yuan than the previous money pouches that Meng Wenhao had. It could only be said that the emergence of a new product would inevitably lead to the emergence of related products. This was inevitable in the development of society. At the same time, it was also a small butterfly effect that Li Zishuan, the butterfly, had brought to this era. "Give me a portion of nibbled chicken, a portion of meatballs, and a portion of rice. Here, for you, 600 Tang horns." At noon, many students felt the convenience of using Tang Yuan for the first time. Usually, when they ate in the canteen, they would have to spend a few hundred copper coins. If they used copper coins, they would have to count them one by one for a long time. Not only was it inconvenient to carry them around, they would also have to waste a lot of time counting the money when buying food. Now, after using Tang Yuan, a transaction could be completed with just a few notes. The workers in the cafeteria, who were responsible for getting food, spent significantly less time counting money. The students who lined up to buy food also bought food at a much faster speed than before. How is it? After looking around, what are your thoughts? Li Zishuan had gathered all the other members of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce and brought them to the canteen for a tour. Of course, they were not looking at the canteen, but at the students using Tang Yuan to buy food in the canteen. "Marquis, there is no doubt that Tang Yuan is more convenient than copper coins. This old man really hopes that one day, all the transactions in Tang Dynasty can be replaced by Tang Yuan. This way, every time this old man goes out to buy goods, he won't have to hire a large number of guards to escort a dozen carts of copper coins. It's safe and convenient." Chao Wendong stroked his beard and sighed. He had traveled extensively for so many years, so of course, he could see the advantages of Tang Yuan. Especially for a merchant like him, who often needed to go out to buy goods, Tang Yuan was simply a divine tool. Boss Chao is right. If the entire Tang Dynasty can use Tang Yuan for transactions, then doing business like us will be much more convenient than before. Feng Zhihua chimed in. Lin Wenyuan frowned and said, "Even so, only Yanhuang College and marquee shops can use Tang Yuan. If you want everyone in the world to accept Tang Yuan, I'm afraid there's still a long way to go." Li Zishuan invited them to the second floor of the cafeteria, where a table of dishes had already been prepared. After everyone sat down, he smiled and said, "Boss Lin's concerns are very reasonable, but many things require a process. Whether it succeeds or not is one thing, whether it is done or not is another. This marquis can tell you with certainty that if the great Tang's commerce is to prosper, the Tang yuan must completely replace the copper coin. At that time, the first batch of people to taste the fresh food will definitely benefit the most." Chao Wendong nodded in agreement and said, "What Marquis said, the few of us all understand. I'm sure Marquis already has a plan, we're all ears." Last year, he was the one who donated the most money to the Warm Tang Foundation. In the first month, he finally received the imperial edict of Righteous Merchant of the World from the imperial court. Now that he had received the title, he naturally wanted to profit. And if he wanted to profit, then he could only follow Li Zishuan, the god of fortune. Yes, as long as Marquis has any orders, this Feng will definitely obey, Feng Zhihua said without hesitation. Compared to Chao Wendong, he was the first to receive the title of Righteous Merchant of the World, because of Li Zishuan. As soon as he finished speaking, the rest of the people also voiced their agreement. Li Zishuan smiled and said, "All right, then this Marquis will talk about the plan first. If anyone has any objections, you can raise them. First, this Marquis hopes that the businesses of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce members will be able to use Tang Yuan for transactions. This Marquis will use all of his wealth to guarantee that the Tang Yuan you receive will be able to be exchanged for copper coins at the bank at any time. In addition, Lantian County is now this Marquis fief. This Marquis welcomes everyone to place a portion of their businesses in Lantian County. This way you will be closer to the Yan Huang Bank, and it will undoubtedly be more convenient for you to exchange copper coins and Tang Yuan. Of course, the most important point is that if you do business in Lantian County, as long as you abide by the law, there will definitely not be any officials coming to find trouble with you. On the contrary, if you meet any troublemakers, the officials will even step in to help you deal with them. In any era, merchants could not avoid dealing with local officials. Of course, the end result of these dealings was that the merchants had to spend money to buy convenience. Therefore, a good business environment was a very, very important factor for merchants. After hearing Li Zishuan's words, everyone's eyes lit up. Chao Wendong asked tentatively, "Marquis, are you serious?" Not to mention the Tang Yuan and the convenience provided by the Yan Huang Bank, just the latter was enough to attract him to open a shop in Lantian County. In these years, he had dealt with many local officials, and knew the principle that the King of Hell was easy to deal with, but the little ghosts were difficult to deal with. This was not a special characteristic of a certain place, but almost all the provinces and counties of the Great Tang had such unspoken rules. Of course, in the future, this Marquis will implement a series of measures to prevent low-level officials from making things difficult for merchants. This Marquis will guarantee it with my dignity, Li Zishuan said with a serious face. Chao Wendong stood up excitedly and said, "Good. This Chao firmly believes that Marquis will definitely do it. Since this is the case, this Chao will first transfer half of the Chao family's business to Lantian County. In addition, this Chao is willing to invest 80,000 strings of coins into Marquis Bank as a deposit. I wonder if Marquis is willing to do it?" Li Zishuan pondered for a moment and nodded. Since Boss Chao is so generous, this Marquis naturally has no reason to refuse. However, there is one thing I need to make clear to Boss Chao. Since this is a deposit, this sum of money cannot be withdrawn for at least 3 years. Of course, as a corresponding reward, this Marquis will give a certain percentage of the bank's shares. So, if you are interested in investing in the Yan Huang Bank, please weigh the pros and cons. Chao Wendong was not surprised by this. He nodded without thinking and said, Marquis, this Chow has thought about it. I will take out 80,000 strings of coins to invest in the Yen Huang Bank. Marquis, this Feng is also willing to take out 80,000 strings of coins to invest in the bank. This Lin is willing to take out 50,000 strings of coins. This Liao, in the end, during this banquet, Li Zishuan pulled in a lot of business for Lantian County. He also pulled in as much as 380,000 strings of coins for the Yen Huang Bank as an initial investment. Together with his own 100,000 strings of coins, the Yen Huang Bank's deposit had reached an astonishing 480,000 strings of coins. This reputation was definitely unparalleled in the entire Tang Dynasty. Later on, it was recorded in the history books that in the second month of the second year of the Jingguan era, Marquis Yong led 6 wealthy merchants in the capital to raise 500,000 strings of coins as a deposit for the Yen Huang Bank. From then on, the name of Tang Yuan began to spread throughout the world. Chapter 1236. AI. Have you heard? Old Master Fan has been thrown into jail by the county magistrate. This. Why? Shoo. Lower your voice. I heard that it was the Marquis of Yong, and who ordered the county magistrate to do so. Marquis of Yong'an? Why would he want to capture Old Master Fan? Heh. What else could it be for? For money, of course. Who is the richest in our Lantian County? Of course it's Old Master Fan. It's said that the Marquis of Yong plans to build a manor in Lantian County, but how can the money collected by the county magistrate be enough? Furthermore, he doesn't want to fork out the money himself, so he can only ask the merchants in the city for money. AI. Who asked us businessmen to be the easiest to bully? What? The Marquis of Yong can't be this kind of person, right? What's so impossible about that? Everyone loves money. Do you think it's possible that Yong doesn't like money? If you ask me, the Marquis of Yong might find trouble with the other merchants in the city. When that happens, our business in Lantian County will really be difficult. In a restaurant in the county seat of Lantian County, a few well-dressed people were sitting around a table, eating and discussing in low voices. The content of their discussion was the huge matter that happened in the city yesterday. This. What should we do? This Zhang just opened a restaurant in the city last year. Heh. What should we do? What can we do? It's said that since ancient times, commoners do not fight with officials. We are just commoners. How can we be a match for the Marquis of Yong'an? If he wants to find trouble with us, we can either obediently hand over the money and settle the matter, or be like Old Master Fan, with our whole family thrown into jail. No. I don't believe that no one will care about the Marquis of Yong'an's outrageous acts. Tomorrow I will go to Chang, and city's capital office to complain. Tisk. Brother Zhang. I think you should save it. Why would the magistrate offend the Marquis of Yong'an for you? When the time comes and the Marquis of Yong'an finds out, he will destroy your family. Impudent. What are your intentions? How dare you slander Marquis? Today Yu Dehang came to the county town to buy some things. At noon, he was hungry, so he went to this restaurant to order some cheap food to fill his stomach. Coincidentally, he met this group of businessmen who were secretly gossiping about Li Zishuan. After hearing the details, how could he tolerate it? He slammed the table and scolded them angrily. Who dares to slander Marquis? When the surrounding diners heard this, they hurriedly stood up and ferociously searched for the people mentioned by Yu Dehang. The few merchants who had been whispering about Li Zishuan earlier turned pale. They looked at each other and immediately slipped away, not daring to stay here any longer. We can't go on like this. I hope Marquis can solve the problem of the Fan family as soon as possible. Yu Dehang looked at the backs of those people and muttered to himself. Yamacho. In the afternoon, in the Yamacho office of Yanhuang College, Zhang Sun Chong pushed the door open and entered after getting permission. Li Zixuan smiled and asked, Little Chong, are you looking for me? Zhang Sun Chong nodded and said, Yes. Yamacho, my father wants me to help him pass a message to you. Li Zixuan raised his eyebrows and said, Your father? Little Chong, sit down first. Zhang Sun Chong sat opposite Li Zixuan and said, Yamacho, my father wants me to ask you, is your Yanwang Bank still short of money? Li Zixuan was startled, then looked at Zhang Sun Chong and smiled. Little Chong, why does your father ask if the bank is short of money? Under Li Zixuan's gaze, which seemed to be able to read people's minds, Zhang Sun Chong suddenly felt uneasy. He scratched his head and shrugged as if he had given up. Ahem. Yamacho, actually, my father wants to help you increase the deposit of the bank to make Tang Yuan more trustworthy. Li Zixuan smiled faintly and said, Your father still wants the shares of the Yanwang Bank, right? Zhang Sun Chong didn't hide it and nodded. It's like this. My father can take out 100,000 strings of cash as a deposit. Also, my father said that if Yamacho agrees to let my family invest in the Yanwang Bank, he can let the Zhangsun family mine the iron mine. As long as Yamacho can give half of the iron produced from the iron mine to the Zhangsun family, it will be fine. Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes. Although he didn't show it on his face, he was shocked in his heart. He didn't expect Zhang Sun Wuji to be willing to use such a large sum to invest in the Yanwang Bank. Of course, this also showed that this old man had good eyesight and saw the huge potential of the bank. Otherwise, he wouldn't be willing to spend such a large amount of money. Haha. Xiaochong, since you don't want to hide it from me, I won't hide it from you either. In fact, the Yanwang Bank doesn't lack money at all. Just yesterday, the deposit of the bank reached 480,000 strings of cash. With such a large deposit, the Yanwang Bank can even establish itself in the entire Chang'an area. 480,000 strings of cash? Zhang Sun Chang's eyes widened and couldn't help but exclaim. With such a huge amount of wealth, the Zhangsun family wouldn't be able to gather so much money even if they sold everything they had. Go. Yamacho, then. Then I'm sorry to disturb you. I'll go back this weekend and tell my father the truth. Sorry to disturb you. Facing such a nouveau riche Li Zixuan, Zhang Sun Chong could only say, Sorry to disturb you. When Li Zixuan heard these 3 words, he couldn't help but recall the joke from his previous life and almost laughed out loud. He quickly said, Wait. Xiaochong, don't leave yet. Zhang Sun Chong, who had already stood up and was about to leave, paused and asked curiously, Yamacho, is there anything else? Yes. Although the bank doesn't lack money recently, since Zhao Guogong has asked, I have to give some face no matter what. 2 days ago, he had heard from Qinxiong that someone in the imperial court had accused him of privately minting money. Fortunately, Zhang Sun Wuji had supported him. This was more or less a favor. Now that Zhang Sun Wuji was so sincere in wanting to invest in the Yanwang Bank, Li Zixuan couldn't be so unreasonable and offend someone for no reason. At this moment, he thought for a while, looked at Zhang Sun Chong and said, How about this, Xiaochong? Go back tonight and tell your father that with the conditions he offered, in exchange for 5% of the bank's shares. It's not that I'm not willing to give more, but more people will invest in the Yanwang Bank in the future. In addition, you have to explain to your father that if there are any copper coins used as deposit in the Yanwang Bank, they are not allowed to be taken out for at least 3 years. 5% within 3 years. Zhang Sun Chong frowned worriedly. This was because he subconsciously felt that Li Zixuan's shares were too little. After all, the Zhangsun family had paid 100,000 strings of copper coins and half of an iron mine as a price. However, although he thought this in his heart, Zhang Sun Chong still cupped his hands and replied, Yes, Yamacho. Then I'll go back tonight and tell my father. As for whether his father agreed to this deal or not, it was not up to him to worry. Yes, You can take a class leave in the afternoon so that it won't be safe if you go back late, Li Zishuan suggested thoughtfully. Thank you, Yamacho. Chapter 1237. Marquis, these are the crimes committed by the Fan family's father and son over the years. There are a total of 23 crimes, each of which has witnesses and material evidence. When it was close to evening, County Magistrate he rode a horse and rushed to Cloud Mountain. He handed Li Zishuan a dossier. Hearing this, Li Zishuan flipped open the file. In the 4th year of Wu De, Fan Tong hoarded a large amount of grain and worked with 8 grain merchants to raise the price of grain in the counties around the capital. Although the government suppressed the price, the Fan family still made millions. At that time, Lantian County's magistrate, Sha Hanyang, only caught some of the grain merchants who raised the price. Fan Tong made a fortune because of this and survived. In the 5th year of Wu De, the Fan family colluded with Lantian County's magistrate and took over the shops and restaurants in the city. They opened their own shops, restaurants, and gambling houses, tempting the people to gamble. In the end, many people sold their land to pay off their gambling debt. In December of the 5th year of Wu De, because Bai Lang of Baixing village couldn't afford to pay the rent, Fan Tong saw that Bai Lang's daughter was very beautiful, so he brought along a slave and forced Bai Lang to sell his daughter Bai Xiao Dai to him. Bai Lang didn't agree, so Fan Tong ordered people to capture him and forcibly put his fingerprint on the slave contract. In order to please Magistrate Sha, Fan Tong offered Bai Xiao Dai to him. Bai Xiao Dai could not bear the humiliation and committed suicide the following year. In the 7th month of the 6th year of Wu De, Bai Lang and the villagers of Baixing village exposed Bai Xiao Dai's case. However, they were forcefully suppressed by County Magistrate Sha. Afterwards, Fan Tong hired a group of Jianghu people to rob the people's village. Bai Lang and the villagers who exposed Fan Tong were all killed. In the 9th month of the 6th year of Wu De, County Magistrate Sha was worried that the imperial court would investigate the case of Bai Xiao Dai, so he resigned from the Ministry of Personnel in advance and returned to his hometown. The county deputy of Lantian County also resigned and retired. In the 7th year of Wu De, a new magistrate took office. Fan Tong began to restrain himself. However, he still used his wealth to oppress the villagers and took over thousands of mu of land. According to the investigation, there were 12 villagers who sold their children because they could not pay the rent. In the 1st year of Jingguan, the Fan family's gambling houses expanded to 4. Many people became addicted to gambling and lost their family fortune. At the same time, in order to suppress the foreign businessmen, the Fan family hired local ruffians to cause trouble, poisoning, extortion, and many other methods. As a result, the Fan family's restaurants and shops were the biggest in Lantian County. In addition, Fan Jianxiang has been relying on the power of the Fan family to run amok in the village, oppressing the villagers, and forcefully taking the daughters of 8 villagers as his concubines. But today, only 4 women are still alive. The Fan family lied that the other 4 women died of illness, but according to the servants of the Fan family, the 4 women committed suicide because they could not bear the humiliation of the Fan family's father and son. Bang! It was a long scroll with over 100 lines of words, but every word seemed to have been soaked in blood. Although the primitive accumulation of capital was generally evil, the sins that the Fan family had committed over the years were too numerous to be recorded. After Li Zishuan finished reading, he could not help but angrily slap the table and say, "In a small Lantian county, there are actually such evil tyrants running amok. The Fan family's crimes are no less than the Chui family's last year. If I don't bring the Fan family's father and son to justice, I am the Lord of Lantian County." County Magistrate He's face was full of shame. Some things, if you don't investigate deeply, you will never know the depth of the evil behind it. At first, County Magistrate he did not take the Fan family's matter too seriously. He thought that although the Fan family's father and son were a little scoundrels, they contributed a lot to Lantian County's revenue every year. Their merits offset their faults, so he turned a blind eye. But after collecting all the evil deeds that the Fan family had done over the years, it was a little shocking. It was because of this that he felt deeply ashamed of his inaction over the past year. Marquis, according to what I know, there have been a lot of rumors in the county these 2 days about the Fan family's father and son. The merchants are secretly worried that you will do something to them. County magistrate. He was silent for a moment and said carefully, "Gossips? Humph, if you don't do anything wrong, you don't have to be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. Those who spread the rumors are most likely not clean." After dealing with the Fan family's father and son, county magistrate he, investigate them one by one. If there is a problem with one family, arrest them. If there is a problem with 2 families, arrest a pair. If there is a problem with all the merchants in the county, arrest them all. These people are the scum of the merchants. The reputation of the merchants is ruined by them. Since ancient times, the social hierarchy of the scholars, agriculture, industry, and commerce was not only because of the social background, but also because some merchants were unscrupulous for profit. The upper class did not have a good impression of the merchants, and it was not without reason. Li Zishuan came from the modern era, so he did not discriminate against merchants. On the contrary, he admired merchants like Father Ma who had a sense of responsibility. But for scum like Fan Tong, he must be resolute in eliminating him. County magistrate he was shocked and said, "Marquis, this must not be done." Li Zishuan waved his hand and said resolutely, "Why not? Even if all the merchants in Lantian County are gone, I have a way to recruit another batch of merchants. Business will be the main brand of Lantian County in the future. If we want to have a good reputation and a good image, we must get rid of all these scum." Li Zishuan's plan for Lantian County was to make it into a city of commerce, and integrity was the foundation of commerce. This. All right, since Marquis already has a plan, I will not say more. County magistrate he was stunned for a moment and then shook his head. The day after tomorrow, at 6:45 in the morning, we will hold a public trial of the Fan family's father and son. The county magistrate will be prepared. Prepare witnesses and evidence. This time, I will completely destroy the Fan family. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment, and then said coldly. County magistrate he saluted and said, "This official obeys." After county magistrate he left, Li Zishuan thought for a moment, and then went out to the new workshop. When he arrived at the workshop, he went straight to Ma Zhou's office and handed him a file. "Mr. Ma, it seems that your editorial department will have to work overtime tonight," Li Zishuan said half-jokingly. Ma Zhou smiled and opened the file suspiciously. His smile suddenly froze on his face. "Marquis, you want me to publish the contents of this in tomorrow's Tang Daily?" After 15 minutes, Ma Zhou put down the file and asked with an ugly expression. Li Zishuan nodded and said coldly, "Yes, that's right. The contents of this file must appear in tomorrow's newspaper, because the day after tomorrow, the show will begin." Ma Zhou immediately understood, and he replied, "Marquis, don't worry. There will be no problems with the editorial department." He had always hated evil. If he could get rid of evil for the people, he would be willing to do it personally, let alone working overtime. "Thank you for your hard work, Brother Ma." Li Zishuan cupped his hands and took his leave. Chapter 1238. 5% of the shares? Night, Chongren Lane, Zhangsun Residence. Zhangsun Chong repeated the words that Li Zishuan said during the day. Zhangsun Wuji listened and couldn't help but frown. Now that the Tang Dynasty was promoting new mathematics, Zhangsun Wuji knew a thing or two about it. He knew about the concept of 5%. Zhangsun Chong nodded. "Yes, father. Yamacho said that there will be many people investing in the Yen Wang Bank in the future. He can only give us this much. I heard that Chang An City's Chao Wendong invested 80,000 strings of cash and only got 2% of the shares. 80,000 strings of cash, 2%. When Zhang Sun Wuji heard this, he gasped and said in surprise, according to this calculation, that Li Zixuan is planning to expand this bank to the scale of over 1 million strings of coins. This old man's guess wasn't wrong back then. This kid is indeed scheming big. Gulp. Zhang Sun Chong swallowed his saliva and said in disbelief, Father? Over 1 million strings of cash? Where did Yamacho get so much money? Zhang Sun Wuji looked in the direction of the palace leisurely and said, Your mountain head is right. There will be more and more people who want to invest in the Yen Wang Bank. Let's see if he can convince the higher-ups with his glib tongue. How could he not see that if the Yen Wang Bank wanted to establish itself in the Tang Dynasty, it needed Li Heir's approval and the royal family's participation? At that time, there would be too many monks and too little porridge. Now that Li Zixuan was willing to give him 5% of the shares, it was really a preferential treatment. The next day morning, Datong Daily's headlines lit up the entire Chang'an city. Lantian Tycoon is heartless. His sins are too numerous to be recorded. By Xiaodai? I seem to have heard of this name before. Isn't this the massacre of White Star Village 5 years ago? That girl. Tisk. So the culprit is the Fan father and son. Damn it. The Fan family deserves to die. They must die. Marquis is mighty, otherwise the Fan father and son would still be at large. There's nothing to say. Tomorrow, I must go to the Lantian County Yamen and personally witness the execution of the Fan father and son. This father and son from the Fan clan are even more despicable than the Chui clan. No matter what, this old man must go to the Lantian County's Yamen tomorrow to take a look. Let's go together. The Confucian scholars, merchants, and common people in Chang'an City were all filled with righteous indignation and clamored to go to Lantian County the next day. At the same time, Lantian County was also blown up by the news on Datong Daily. So the Fan family has done so many bad things over the years. The father and son of the Fan family deserve to die. Poor father and daughter of the Bai family. Who would have thought that the bandits from White Star Village 5 years ago were hired by Fan Tong? God damn it. Devoid of conscience. If this kind of person doesn't die, the heavens must be blind. It's all thanks to the Marquis of Yong'an. Otherwise, who would dare to capture the Fan family's father and son? Marquis Yong Unrunny. Tomorrow, I will go to the county yamen to testify. When White Star Village was looted, this old man was there. I'll go too. I want to see the Fan family's father and son sentenced. The crimes listed in Datong Daily were so shocking that those who read the newspaper were filled with righteous indignation. As for the Lantian County merchants who had complained about Li Zixuan's capture of the Fan family's father and son, they did not even dare to fart now. Datong Daily had been established for almost a year, and the news it reported had never been false. Since it dared to put the Fan family's father and son's case on the top of the news, it meant that the contents were all conclusive evidence. In the face of such evidence, how would these merchants dare to continue to be in the same camp as the Fan family? Their top priority was to draw a clear line between them and the Fan family. In Taiji Palace, the morning court was halfway through. A chamberlain from the Yellow Door suddenly rushed into the imperial court with a booklet in his hand. Zhao Song knew that something urgent had happened. He quickly took the booklet and passed it to Li Er. After Li Er finished reading it, he frowned. He patted the dragon desk and ordered in a deep voice, "Iching Dai, go to the Lantian County Yamen tomorrow morning. There's a big case there that needs your attention." The Dali Temple's vice-chancellor, Dai Ai, was dumbfounded. Due to time constraints, the officials who attended the morning court usually did not see the latest issue of Tang daily before the morning court, so it was understandable that he did not understand what Li Er was saying. Your Majesty, may I know what's the big case in Lantian County? Dai Ai took a step forward and cupped his hands. Li Er did not want to say too much to prevent it from affecting his mood. He waved his hand and said, You will know after the court. Iching Dai will represent the Dali Temple to preside over the public trial in Lantian County tomorrow. You must give me a clear explanation. This was the first time Dai Ai had received such a strange task. How could he preside over a case that he had not even heard of? However, it was obvious that Li Er did not want to say too much, so he could not take the initiative to ask. He could only helplessly cup his hands and reply. Your subject obeys the decree. He thought to himself. After the morning court, he had to send someone to Lantian County to investigate the big case there. However, that was now the fief of the Marquis of Yong'an. He had not heard of any big movements from the Marquis of Yong'an recently. Hiya. At 8:45 in the morning, Dai Ai left the palace after the morning court session. His coachman brought him a newspaper. After reading the headlines, Dai Ai instantly understood what case Li Er wanted him to investigate, especially the massacre of the White Star Village 5 years ago. It made his expression change. At this moment, he did not even bother to return home. He immediately got on his horse and rushed to Yun Mountain. Yo! Isn't this Dai Xiaoqing? What brings you here? Dai Ai finally arrived at Yunshan when it was close to noon. Li Zishuan, who was eating in the courtyard, could not help but laugh when he saw Dai Ai, who was panting and with disheveled hair. Ah, my Marquis! You still have the time to joke around at a time like this. Hurry up and tell me about the Fan family case in detail. Dai Ai smiled bitterly as he walked into the front hall. What do you mean? Just now, His Majesty asked me to preside over the Fan family case in court. That is why I rushed over in a hurry to understand the situation in advance. Li Zishuan was silent for a moment after hearing Dai Ai's answer. He then said, Since His Majesty asked Dai Xiaoqing to preside over the case, then I have no objections. However, eating is the most important thing in this world. Dai Xiaoqing must have not eaten since you came in such a hurry, right? Come, sit down and eat first. We can discuss proper matters after you eat. Chapter 1239. Begin the trial. Wei Wu. The sound of Wei Wu and Wei Wu from a gavel had shocked countless evil spirits throughout the ages. The next morning, at 6:45 in the morning, Lantian County's Yamen was already surrounded by layers upon layers of commoners. Following Dai Ai's slam of the gavel, the highly anticipated public trial finally began. The fact that the Vice-Chancellor of the Supreme Court was personally presiding over the trial made the people feel the importance the court placed on the case. They all breathed a sigh of relief. Bring the criminals Fan Tong and Fan Jianxiang to court. In the court, as the main judge, Dai Ai naturally sat at the head of the table, followed by County Magistrate He. Li Zishuan, as an observer, sat at the side and became a spectator. Dai Ai slammed the gavel down again and shouted, Bring the criminals Fan Tong and Fan Jianxiang to court. Someone spread the word far and wide. A moment later, Fan Tong and Fan Jianxiang were escorted into the courtroom by 4 Yamen runners. Compared to a few days ago, the Fan father and son were no longer as spirited and arrogant as before. Fan Tong's heart sank when he saw Dai Ai sitting at the head of the table, wearing a dark red official robe, representing a 4th-rank official. If the presiding judge was a 4th-rank official, it meant that the court had begun to interfere with his case. As for the things he had done in the past, how could they withstand an investigation? Are you Fan Tong and Fan Jianxiang? Dai Ai's eyes flashed as he shouted. As the head of the Supreme Court's prison, Dai Ai's aura was incomparable to that of an ordinary county magistrate. His shout sent the Fan father and son into a panic. "Yes, sir. I am Fan Tong." "Yes. I am Fan Jianqiang." Fan Tong was relatively calm, but Fan Jianqiang was so frightened by Dai Ai's aura that he almost wet his pants. He even stuttered a little. "Good. Fan Tong, let me ask you. During the 4th year of Wuda, did you and 8 grain merchants hoard grain to drive up the price of grain?" Dai Xian did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Fan Tong's eyes flashed. He stepped forward and replied, "Sir, I've always been honest in my business dealings. I've never done anything as evil as hoarding." "Humph. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Men, summon the witness, Hu Jinhua." Dai Ai sneered and ordered. "Here." A yamen runner went to bring the witness. When Fan Tong heard the name, Hu Jinhua, his expression changed. A moment later, a yamen runner brought an old man in plain clothes. Dai Ai asked, "Is the person in the hall Hu Jinhua?" The plain-clothed old man cupped his hands and said, replying to Shangguan, "I am Hu Jinhua." "Hu Jinhua, let me ask you, 6 years ago, did you collude with Fan Tong and other grain merchants to drive up the price of grain around the capital?" Hu Jinhua said with a pained look, replying, "Your Excellency, it's true. Back then, Lord Fan found me and the others and said that he was taking advantage of the drought and the war between the Great Tang and the Turkic Khaganate to stockpile provisions and make huge profits. At that time, the price of provisions around the capital rose from 3 copper coins per bushel to 10 copper coins per bushel. Not long after, the imperial court became aware of this. His Majesty ordered the government to suppress the price of provisions and issued a decree ordering Lantian County Magistrate to investigate the merchants who drove up the price of provisions. At that time, I and a few others were arrested, stripped of our property, and punished with flogging. Only Fan Tong was spared. Because of County Magistrate Shah's power, after we were released, we immediately changed our names, and never dared to do business again." "Nonsense. You're lying. I don't know you." Fan Tong was furious. His eyes were red, and he wanted to skin Hu Jinhua alive. "Humph. This who also has the account book of Master Fan's purchase of grain with us. At that time, Master Fan didn't have enough money, so he borrowed some money from this Hu. The account book and the IOU are all here. Whether this Hu is speaking nonsense or not, Sir will know with a glance." Hu Jinhua sneered and took out 2 items from his sleeves. "Bring them up," Dai Ai said hurriedly. The yamen runner took the evidence from Hu Jinhua and handed it to Dai Ai with a bow. Dai Ai flipped it open and said angrily, "Humph! Fan Tong, how dare you lie to me in court? Now that we have witnesses and evidence, what else do you have to say? Men, take him away and give him 20 strokes of the cane." "Yes, Your Excellency." The 2 yamen runners charged at Fan Tong like hungry wolves. Fan Tong was scared out of his wits. He had lived like a prince for so long, how could he withstand 20 strokes of the cane? If he continued, he would probably lose half his life. "Your Excellency, I plead guilty. I know I was wrong. Please have mercy on me, Your Excellency." Dai Ai said coldly, "Take him away and flog him." For some people, flogging was no different from a killing blow. They would not tell the truth until they were flogged. Bang! Ouch! "Your Excellency, please spare my life." The yamen was filled with Fan Tong's pleas and the sound of flogging. The people outside the court were enjoying themselves. A quarter of an hour later, Fan Tong was brought back to the court like a dead dog. Dai Ai did not give him a chance to breathe. "Fan Tong, today this official is going to interrogate you about your crimes. There are witnesses and evidence. If you still dare to lie, don't blame this official for being impolite." Fan Tong's face was pale. Facing such a cruel and merciless court official put him under great pressure. His voice trembled when he heard Dai Ai's words. I won't do it again. I won't do it again. Dai Ai nodded. Then let me ask you again. In the 5th year of Wuda, you colluded with County Magistrate Shah to embezzle other people's land and shop. Is that true? It's true. I plead guilty. Then let me ask you again. I plead guilty. The rest of the trial went smoothly. Fan Tong confessed to 4 crimes in a row. Dai Ai was getting thirsty. He pursed his lips, his eyes focused, and said in a low voice, in the 6th year of Wuda, White Star Village was attacked by bandits and suffered several massacres. Did you have anything to do with it? Were you afraid that Bai Xiaodie's case would be exposed, so you asked the bandits to help you kill her? Fan Tong, who had admitted his guilt without hesitation, was now shocked. He quickly shook his head and denied. My lord, this case has nothing to do with me. I'm just a merchant. How could I know bandits? My lord is wise. I've been wronged. He could admit to other crimes. At most, he would be stripped of his property and be punished. However, he could not admit to this crime. If he did, he would lose his life. The people outside the court saw that Fan Tong refused to admit to his crimes. They began to curse under their breaths. Dai Ai's face darkened. He said coldly, I'll give you one more chance. Are you sure you won't admit to your crimes? Fan Tong was sweating. My lord, I've been wronged. Humph. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Men, summoned by you and Fan Shicheng. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.